Girl, get up! Get up! That's literally my note. She had her jeans on the whole time. She had her jeans on the whole time. Hey, my name is Kaylee. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Oh, this is Read, Rant, Review. I read books, I do rant reviews, I try to have a good time when you guys aren't completely sabotaging my life. I do reviews, like really in-depth, chapter by chapter, beat by beat breakdowns of books that you guys vote for. And apparently my audience is made up of a bunch of sadists who love to watch me hate my life. So you guys voted for Five Brothers by Penelope Douglas. This is a 560-page romance novel that was published in 2024. Penelope Douglas infamously wrote Credence. I'm sure you've heard of it if you're in this space. If you clicked this video, I'm sure you already know. So I like to unpack more unpopular books by authors who have such viral success like Credence or like Colleen Hoover books. I like to look at the lesser known books just to see writing quality, if it's gotten any better through the years. Like, what are we working with here? This was something. I'm going to read you the book description so that we can be on the same page. And then I'll give you some trigger warnings, some other disclaimers, and then we'll get right into it, okay? Hey, it's Future Kaylee here. Sorry, I always forget to do the little spiel. I have all of these videos available on Spotify. The link is in the description box below. I'm about to hit some really big milestones over there, so if you guys would please, or if you use Spotify at all, please go listen over there, subscribe, or follow, whatever the heck it's called. I also have the Etsy shop linked in the description box below in case you want any of the cool channel stickers. We have a Read, Rant, Review. I don't know what you want from me, bro. Oh my God. And I hate it here. I also have one that says, I love when abusers get abused. They're so cute. So yeah, that's in the description box below. And yeah, you know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Okay, back to the video. Thanks. On the other side of town, in the dark glades under the rain, Macon is the oldest, 31, ex-Marine. I don't think I've ever seen him smile. Army, that's his name, is 28, a single dad with the most beautiful green eyes. He has no idea who he is, if not a Jaeger brother. Iron will be in prison soon. You'd never think it if you met him. He's a nice guy, actually, but he can't stop reacting to everything. Dallas is the one I hate. 21, cruel, and selfish. He takes and then throws away whatever's left. And Trace is mine, or at least he was for about 2 seconds. No one can tame him for long. Not that I ever wanted to. It was fun, but now I need to go home, back to my side of the tracks, away from the swamps and these men, to my parents' big house on my clean street where I'm never dirty or messy or hot. And I'll leave first thing tomorrow morning. I just want to crash on the couch tonight. Their house is dark and quiet. Everyone else is asleep, except for one. He sees me crying and comes at me from behind. I let him wrap his arms around my body and hold me tightly. His breath on my neck, his fingers are in my hair, but he doesn't stop there. And I don't think it was Trace. Okay, and we're gonna get into it in like 2 minutes. That is the focus of this book, is what brother banged her on the couch that night. She has no idea. For 80% of this, I already have tears in my eyes. 80% of this book is her trying to figure out which one of these 5 brothers banged her. So with that, you can catch the vibe of what this is about to be. But I do have 3 disclaimers before we get into it. The first one being, this review will obviously contain all of the spoilers. The second being, this review is not for Penelope Douglas. It's not for friends, fans, family, stans, anything of the like. I obviously very clearly do not like Penelope Douglas as an author. I did not like this book. I will be making fun of it. Don't watch this if you liked it, okay? I'll catch you on the next one if that's the case. And again, if you're asking yourself, well, Kaylee, why do you read things you don't like? Because you guys like watching these types of videos, okay? Don't look at me. Don't judge me for that. You're the one that wanted this. And plus, it's fun. And then the third and final disclaimer is a content or trigger warning that I like to put on all of my videos so that you know what we're about to get into. I do have the time stamped below if you would like to go ahead and skip this portion and just get right into the deep dive. So, Content warnings. There is ideation of ending one's own life. I have to use euphemisms. I'm early in the video. Don't get mad at me. Mental illness, misogyny, shaming, death/grief, past sexual abuse, past abuse in general, alcoholism, past child neglect, and substance abuse. It's pretty heavy. It's pretty dark. There's some dark things that happen. To the point that our book opens with a consensual, non-consent scene that you don't realize that is the context of this non-consensual encounter until like 10 pages in. What an introduction. What an introduction to a book. And it's not just like, oh, cool, we get this like introduction to this like relationship dynamic between these people. It's their little spicy time. This is an 18-year-old, freshly out of high school girl having this situation with a 20-year-old situationship. And this is where we're coming out the gate right now. Penelope Douglas, at the time of recording this, is 48 years old. So that means that this book was like written, published, whatever you want to call it, at like 46, 47. And you're writing about 18-year-olds? There is absolutely, and I know, I'm a cart ahead of the horse right now. There is no reason that this main female character couldn't have been like 20. She could have been on break from college and came home for the semester to deal with XYZ. There is no reason on God's green earth, on Mark Zuckerberg's internet, that this child had to be 18 years old. But that's an argument for a whole other thing. This consensual non-consent thing, it's with a 20-year-old named Trace. He is one of 6 Jaeger siblings. This book occurs in the, Trist 6 Venom is the other book that was published previously. It's a sapphic dark romance between 2 like high school girls that end up going to college. This is in the same universe. This is about her brothers, the 5 brothers of hers that make up the 6 Trist Venom, right? Cool. So it's the Jaeger brothers, siblings. Anyway, so they get to the point where they're about to like get down and dirty. He does not have any protection. The mood is instantly killed. They have a little bit of back and forth, and she realizes that this has been a 6-month casual relationship for him. And she was like maybe kind of sort of developing feelings and thought that they were monogamous, and that's not the case. And she's kind of upset about it. And so she ends up just like asking him to take her home. They go to his house where her Rover is. Like the super, super expensive SUVs. Girl, again, okay, we're dealing with a lot of money here. And so we're introduced to the dynamic instantly that our main female character, oh, I haven't even told you her name. We haven't even gotten to the best part. Her name is Christian. Krisjen. And we're about to introduce a lot of characters. So I'm going to rotate you if you're watching visually. We're going to rotate slightly so that I can have a running list of characters for you. I cannot begin to explain to you how atrocious all of the names are, the amount of characters that we get introduced to, and just like the dynamics in general. This is arguably the messiest, most craziest book that I have ever read. Derogatory. As I was saying, they cut the hookup short, they go to his house, and the dynamic is her Rover, right? She's from a place called St. Carmen. Super, super rich neighborhood, absolutely like bougie millionaires, obviously, who give their 18-year-old children 6-figure vehicles. And pretty much across the tracks, across the railroad tracks, is the Bay, is what it's known as, but it's also known as the Swamps. And so there's this rivalry between the Swamps and the Saints, right? The rich people and the poor people. And the Jaegers live in the Bay. They live in the swamp. They're Shrek, right? And she's crossed over because she wants to, hook up with these guys. I don't freaking know, dude. So it is a point of contention between their families. Well, between the communities. She goes inside to get her keys out of Trace's bedroom. While he's up there, he tries to seduce her again. She says no because she's kind of frustrated. This other girl walks in and he's like, oh no, seriously, like, are you going to do something with me? Because like, I'm going to like hook up with her if you're not going to. This completely turns her off. So she says, yeah, most definitely, and leaves. She doesn't make it very far though, because this woman slashed her tires, both like 2 of her 4 tires. Her name is Araceli, and she She has dated one of the brothers, had hooked up with two other of the brothers, and she's very, very protective of them, especially given that Christian is a saint. And so she's like sabotaged her. I don't know, dude. And so the tires are slashed. So Christian has to go back inside. She's obviously not going to go upstairs to Trace's room, though. So she decides that she's just going to crash on the couch, which I guess is totally fine because this is like a party house. And she's been hooking up for 6 months and been over here. So they all like know who she is. This is okay. All right. We're getting a lot of information at once. So passes out on the couch. She has a naughty dream. She's, going to town on the couch in the middle of the living room in a wide open. And something wakes her up. She wakes up. She looks over. And she sees a shadowy figure in the corner staring at her, smoking a cigarette. Which also, ew, don't smoke indoors. Don't smoke in general, but especially don't smoke indoors. Come on, guys. And so she, like... for some godforsaken reason, starts to trauma dump. Because she's, like, trying to figure out who it is, and he, like, won't respond to anything that she's saying. So she just, like, continues to go on and on, saying a bunch of, like, nonsense. She says, "You can brag about this," I tell him, feeling around in the dark for my shoes. "Someday, when I look, act, and smell like a pristine pair of $1,500 heels, and I'm married to a lawyer or a banker who tastes like glue... and campaigns for family values at church every Sunday, you can once say that you watched me myself on your couch, right?" Good God. He still doesn't respond. I look back at him, waiting for some kind of response. "Who is that?" I ask. And I'm like, why are you phrasing it that way? Wouldn't you say, "Who are you?" Why? Who is that? Why? We're not getting into it. And so then she goes on. She realizes it's not Trace. He's like too tall to be Trace, and Trace doesn't smoke. She continues to go on. I guess, I fist the blanket, I guess I didn't want to think my relationship with Trace was meaningless either, because then it would mean that it was just as shallow as... I don't finish the sentence. Mommy issues are boring. Why do I do that? I say more to myself, but I still feel him watching me. Why do things have to mean anything? Why is it either all in or empty? If it's not enough, then it's nothing to me. Why? My chin trembles and I must seem so ridiculous to him. What do I have to cry about? I stand and fold the blanket. I can't afford to go to college, I drone on, because my dad took all the money, and even if he hadn't, the kids... I stop staring at the floor as the tears spill over. I choke out the words. I can't leave them alone with her. He, like, comes up behind her, like, hugs her, I guess, like, puts his arms around her, and he says, "We're not dead yet." He murmurs over my skin and my temple, and then he, like, puts her on the couch, like, face down, and, does things, and he, inside of her, with no protection, and says in her ear, "Someday," he says as he squeezes my throat, "when you look, act, and smell like a pristine pair of $1,500 heels, and you're married to a lawyer or a banker who tastes like glue or parades you around like his little trophy, I can wonder if it's my son he's playing daddy to." He gets up, like, instantly. By the time that she, recovers from this, like, amazing thing that's going on and turns around, he's gone. I scan the dark, empty living room. Who the hell was that? Girl, how do you even come up with this kind of thing? That's what I want to know. What kind of crazy Mad Libs, what are we doing? How is this something that comes into somebody's brain? Honest to God. And so in chapter 2, she wakes up the next morning and has breakfast with all of them. We learn a little bit more of family dynamics, how much the brothers all kind of have drama with each other, all kind of picking on each other, but, it's brotherly love. Except for Macon, the oldest brother, who is a little grumpy Gus, and Dallas, who is just a complete misogynist. Absolutely, some of the most horrific things I have read said about women occurred in this book, and it came from Dallas or from this other dude that we'll get to later. And so he's like, girls aren't allowed at the table. That's a rule. Pretty much like, you guys are just treated like crap and you're not actual human beings. And we just like, bang you guys and you don't mean anything. So get out, go away. She ignores him. She stays at the table. And she stays at breakfast. And she's looking from brother to brother at their wrists. Because each of the siblings from this whole Tryst 6 venom wear a leather bracelet with this like insignia, the like family, emblem symbol thingy-majiggy and this like little cross. And it's this really intricate leather bracelet. And she's trying to look at each of them and trying to figure out whose hand that it possibly could have been. And for some reason, these bracelets get brought up a lot, like a lot. And I'm over here picturing, like, did you ever see Ben 10? Because this is the watch that I was picturing. Like, this is the type of bracelet that I imagined all of these men wearing. Just this completely oversized, nonsensical thing. She can't come to a conclusion, though. She's not any closer to figuring out who it is. But the guys are talking about work, and their, like, family business is a landscaping, gardening, pool cleaning, and carpentry company. And all of their jobs are over in St. Carmen. So they're just kind of planning out their day. Macon, being the oldest, he runs the business. But Army, the second oldest brother, he's like the face of the business. And so he'll go out on all the jobs with the younger brothers to go and get stuff done. And Macon stays home all the time. And then he repairs cars. Like, that's his side hustle, money-making thing that's going on, okay? As they're doing all of this, Iron, one of the middle brothers, the one that's going to prison soon, he is like, hey, you know, I fixed your tires last night on your car, but there's a couple other issues with it if you want to come out here with me. She's like, oh my God, that's so crazy. What's going on? But long story short is the fact that her car is going to take a lot of time to repair. During this whole discussion of him offering to fix her car and whatnot, she says that she won't be able to afford it, and so she doesn't want him to fix it. And he's like, well, I'm not going to charge you for it, but if you do want to make money, you can work at Mariette's down the street. It's like literally a block down the street from their house, and it's this little diner that they own. These guys got like a freaking monopoly on the bay. They own the restaurant, they own the bar, they obviously have their whole business that's going on and a couple other things. These brothers got their fingers in everything over here. They're like the freaking little mafia family of this neighborhood. It's absolutely crazy, but that's a whole other discussion that we'll get into later. So he's like, yeah, you can work at Mariette's. It'll come back around, I promise. Trace asks if she has another vehicle that she can drive in the meantime while he fixes it up for her. She does. She has her dad's Benz. Her dad's old Benz that she's going to drive around. And by old, I'm sure it's like maybe 4 years old. That's just what I expect from these types of people. And so she's going to have to find another way home, i.e., he's going to take her home. So she hops on the back of his motorcycle bike, and drives her over to her house. And as he's driving her home, he's saying like, hey, you know, I know if things between you and Trace ended, if you can just continue to be his friend, like with me going to prison and all this other stuff, like he really, really needs friends around, and he especially needs a woman influence, because his only memories of our mother were after she had gotten to her worst. He was never nurtured, not the way that the rest of us were, or how Liv, the sister, was, because she was the only girl. Trace missed out on a lot. He needs a woman in the house. And Christian is thinking to herself, after she'd gotten to her worst, their mother died by suicide more than 8 years ago, 2 months after their dad died of a heart attack. And again, we're just like hitting heavy with these like character development moments. I was like, can we say hello? Can you take me to dinner first? Can we get some type of introductions in before we just like trauma dump, instant build characters? Drops her off in the side yard so the mom won't know who she is with, because God forbid she gets seen with, you know, a swamp. So she gets inside, and again, introduced immediate family dynamics are established. She has a 5-year-old sister named Paisley, Paisley. Paisley. These names in this book are truly a tragedy. Like, I don't know if you're on Reddit or not, but there's an r/tragedy, and it's about names that are just spelt insanely. No offense to anybody if you share names with these people. She has a 13-year-old brother. His name is Marshall, but he goes by Mars. And he's a 13-year-old boy. You know how they are. They're standoffish and only ever have their headphones on and stay on their phone the whole time. Just kind of little punks. Her parents are going through a very tumultuous divorce. Her father pretty much abandoned them for his affair partner, lied to all of them, saying that he was moving to Atlanta, but actually he was just moving to the other side of town. Town being located in Florida, by the way. Not sure where in Florida. Somewhere, though, where there's swamps and bays. I don't freaking know, dude. Don't look at me like that. I don't know. So dad's in town, though. He's just a deadbeat now. We'll talk. I'll tell you now. The dad thinks that Mars is not his child. So in response to finding out or like determining this news, he just abandons all of them, even though the assumption or the belief is that Christian and Paisley are in fact his children. He still just writes all of them off. And they're going through this terrible divorce. Whatever. Dad sucks. Mom, arguably, even worse. Because when Christian gets home that night and she runs into her her mom says, hey, honey, I'm going to marry you with this guy named Jerome. He's like 32 years old. He's an aspiring, a rich guy. I don't remember the job, and it doesn't really matter. And, he can really help us, maintain our lifestyle, and we'll be set for life if you just go ahead and marry him. So here's what's going to happen. You guys are going to go on this date. We're going to go to church. You guys are going to run into each other, and we'll slowly build a relationship until eventually he asks you to spend the night. And you're going to do whatever it takes to get him to fall for you. And then you guys are going to get married and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I know that you're going to do it because you have to take care of your brother and sister. Hello? Also established early on that the mom just goes and parties and like drinks and has a boyfriend and goes and does whatever she wants on the side. And so all of the responsibility of the siblings falls onto Christian when it's not falling on the nanny, okay? Christian does this whole, oh my God, I'm so responsible for these children and I just have to do everything I can to take care of them. And it's such a struggle to, be a single mom who works 2 jobs and loves her kids and never stops. But she has a freaking nanny here, like 5 days a week, and the kids are whatever. We're not getting into it, but I was just like, girl, shut up. And she's 18, just graduated high school, never had a job, never done anything, just did school stuff. And then now she doesn't want to go to college because she just doesn't know what she wants to do when she grows up. So she didn't go to college this year. No judgment. People do it all the time. But this little rich, snobby girl talking about it just made me want to wring her pretty little neck. You know what I mean? After this discussion with her mother, she's been home for all of like 10 minutes, and Mars is about to go to school, so she's not going to bother with him. But she goes up to Paisley, her little sister, and she's like, hey, do you want to spend the day with me? Paisley says, heck yeah. And they get in her dad's old Benz, and they drive back to the Bay, and she goes directly to Mariette's so that she can work, have a job, get out of the house, do something productive with her time. The boys are about to leave for work in chapter 3. This is from Iron's POV. They're all getting ready to leave. When they look up, they see Christian pull into Mariette's diner parking lot, and she's getting the kid out and they're going inside. And then across the street from the diner, there is a motel. Okay, not that big of a deal. But they see a guy walk out of the motel, and that is a big deal. His name is Milo, and I swear to God, what did my notes say? Who's Milo, you ask? Well, my friend. Character 87 is introduced to the story, and he is her abusive ex, who he or his friend, it kind of goes back and forth, and it's confusing, and I don't know, but one of them tried to assault Liv, the Jaeger sister, her, like, best friend's girlfriend. Don't look at me that way, okay? Just, if you're visual, just look at the screen and it'll have the relationships outlined. I don't freaking know. Milo's a piece of crap. That's the point of it. And he should not be in the Bay because he's a saint, and they should have, offed him when he tried to assault their sister. So they like sprint over there to Milo and they confront him and they're like, what do you think you're doing in the Bay? Milo is there at the motel because he is like hooking up with a woman from the Bay. Like he's paying her for stuff. And he does this quite a bit. Iron, though, again, he's about to go to prison actively for like 3.5 years for beating up people. He's going to have a felony for getting in fights. And so the brothers are like, hold me back. So his brother... hold me back. Sorry. That was so funny. Ugh. So his brothers hold him back. Milo leaves. I don't know, dude. This is such a dumb book. For some reason, Iron then decides to like channel this like rage that he can't take out on Milo, and instead storms across the street to Mariette's and immediately like pulls Christian out of said diner and then starts to yell at her. I see Christian carrying drinks to people on the deck, and I head for her. My brother calls out to me. I ignore him. Christian, I call. She turns her head, sees me, and rolls her eyes. I know. It took about 3 seconds after you left for me to realize that I did not want to be subjected to my mother today, so I'm just taking you up on your offer, but just for today. I won't be back. I mean it. And he says, just go now. I mean it. Leave. She's like, what's wrong? What's happening? And then Dallas chimes in and he's like, you heard the man, get out of here. We're not a tourist attraction. For you girls to ride on until you've had enough, go slum it somewhere else. Like, he's like, we're just a joke to them. To all of them. They just use us. And he's just having this like, I was going to say extraterrestrial. experimental, external, existential. Jesus Christ, Kaylee. He's having this existential crisis about how the Saints just use them, which is a legitimate concern and it's a legitimate critique of, like, you know, the landscape here. However, don't take it out on this poor girl, dude. It goes on, and so she's like, hey, you're gonna sit here and like talk crap about like us just using you to bang, and you're gonna really act like you and Dallas or any of you were looking for love all of the times that you went after Saint Carmen Tail? Please. The difference is, I walk up to her lowering my voice, we would marry you. If we loved you, I would be so proud if you were mine. Any of us would be. Would you show me off to your friends? Jump at the chance to live over here in the gutter with us? And she's like, if I ever loved any of you, then maybe. What am I reading? I honest to God, where am I? What? And then he like continues to go on, and he's like, yeah, like, you would never want to be with a swamp, with one of us from the Bay. You would marry a saint, right? Like, you would have married Milo, and, like, he hit you, didn't he? And he, like, completely brings up her, like, previous abuse and is, like, making fun of her for it almost, or, like, talking crap to her about it, and saying that, like, if she would have spoken up about it, then his sister wouldn't have had the, like, attempted assault against her, and he blames Christian for not coming forward with it and reporting him to the police. And she's like, she critiques it, and she's like, you really think I could have said anything with the ties that he has in the town, and they would have wiped it before it got anywhere, and like, there wasn't an option for me to do that. Legitimate answers in responses to these things, and he's just being a prick. Kind is freaking like wishy-washy back and forth insanity. Then he's like, I'm sorry for what I said. I didn't mean it. She tears away from me, opening her car door. Just let me go. I press my hand into it, slamming it shut. You're not going back there today. She turns, scowling at me. I look down at her. I don't want you around those people. In chapter 4, it opens with Christian's POV, and Iron is slashing the tires on her father's Benz. So her one car is actively being worked on, like it's over in their garage and Macon is working on it. And then now her current car just got the tire slashed. So now her and Paisley are stuck at the diner. And so she's just gonna continue working for the day. And he says, yeah, just stay here and keep working. We'll be back at 5. So she goes back to waitressing at the restaurant like she originally planned to do for the day. But now she has 2 less tires and had like a bunch of mental anguish for no reason from a man-child. She loves the job, whatever. She kills it. It's her first day ever working ever. And she's like doing so good and like amazing. And she just loves it so much. And then at one point, so I mentioned it briefly, I think maybe in the book description, Army is a single dad. And so whenever he has to go to work, there's a babysitter down the street that like watches the kid or whatever. Said babysitter showed up to the diner at some point and took Paisley away, and they went on an airboat ride. And Christian never noticed until they came back and Paisley was telling her about the adventure. Hello? What do you mean you didn't know that they left? You didn't have eyes on her the entire time? Every single time I would have turned around, I would have been looking for the kid. What are you talking about? She's 18. I have to remember this. My judgment stands, though. 5 o'clock comes around, the boys return, everyone's so impressed by her, and she's just like so amazing. And she tells them that there's a guy named Garrett. Again, the way all these people are here, I just want to cry. And I have cut out so many names. You guys have no idea how many freaking people are introduced into this book. But Garrett is this rich guy who's basically, he's trying to buy the Bay and like turn it into like a real estate development opportunity and like kick all of them out and stuff. And so he's at the diner with a health inspector. How does she know he's a health inspector? I don't know, rich people stuff. They all just know each other, I guess. And so she's like, yeah, I thought you guys should know that. In chapter 5, they go back to the house and the guys are trying to fix the tires on her car before Macon finds out, because if he finds out, he's going to be pissed, understandably so. They fix it. Everything's fine. Sweet. Awesome. She's on her way home and she gets a phone call from her brother, and her brother says, hey, I'm at the clubhouse and I need you to come and pick me up. The clubhouse, like the country club. The country club, of course. Of course. So he's there and she's like, it's really late at night. What do you mean you're at the country club? It's closed. And he's like, just come and get me, please. So she shows up. They all know who she is. Like the doorman knows who she is. Sorry, I'm making the worst faces every time I talk about this. This is like next caliber level of like money that is disgusting to me. So the doorman opens it for her. They know her name. They know her family. She goes in there and she goes up to the top area, and Milo pretty much kidnapped her brother, gave him a white powdery substance that I think I would get flagged for if I said it on YouTube. A 13-year-old, high as hell, just so he could like confront her and talk crap to her about her hanging out with the Jaegers and make some other veiled threats about how they're not going to be there for much longer and she's dumb for even talking to them. It's so weird. She finally leaves with her brother. She runs into Jerome, the arranged Mary guy, and he's like, hey, I thought that was you. How's it going? She tells her brother to get in the car. She BS's with him a tiny bit, you know, bats her eyes and gets through the situation and leaves. When she's finally leaving, she runs into Army. Because God for freaking bid, we have like a moment of peace in this book. If anything, this book definitely just keeps the freaking ball rolling. There is always some nonsense happening. She goes up to Army and she's like, what are you doing here? And he says, well, you forgot your first paycheck. And gives it to her. And he's like, you know, hey, if you do ever want to come back out and work at Marriott's, you're more than welcome to. And hopefully this wasn't your last, you know, day in the Bay. Like, you're more than welcome to come whenever you want to. And she pushes back, though. And she's like, I'm not working at Marriott's full time, I tell him, slipping the money into my pocket. I don't belong there. Too low class for you. I didn't say that. He narrows his eyes, takes a step into my space, and I back up, but he's still coming. Let me tell you something, Conroy. That's her last name. He's never called me by my surname before. I could have literally just kept reading. Marriott has been working that joint since she was 11. She's never left the state, much less the country. She had no choices. So you know what she did? She played the hand she was dealt. She's there 7 days a week and created a fucking culture inside of those four walls. It's not a restaurant. It's a home. Kids have celebrated birthdays there. Couples have laughed through wedding receptions, and a shit ton of people have lost their virginity either in the bathroom or in the parking lot. So I'm not going to stand here and listen to a rich girl tell me that where Marriott has spent 3/4 of her life is worthless and that she's too good to be a waitress there. And she's like, that's not what I was saying at all, freak. I didn't mean that. I meant like I don't belong in the Bay. I don't belong there because I'm using you guys to hide from my responsibilities in my future, and I like it too much there to be honest. That's what I meant. And so he kind of tucks his tail between his legs, and he's like, hey, like, we need you there. I mean, when you don't know what you want to do for yourself, you might as well be useful somewhere else. You know, it's better than just like lazing about. And tells her the job offer is always there. Whatever. They go to part ways. And she's like, hold on, wait a second. How did you know where I was? Like, you would have assumed that I would have gone straight home. You had no idea that I came to the club, so why are you here? And he ends up revealing to her that we have cameras inside of the clubhouse. She's like, are you serious? And you're just gonna tell me that? Like, you can trust me? Maybe we have dirt on your crowd, on Milo, on Garrett. And my father? Maybe. Who knows? And he like leans all close to her and they're having a moment. And then she's like, I'm not sleeping with you. You're too old for me, just so we're clear. Girl, okay. And so before he even fully turns around, she's like, yeah, I'll call Marriott tomorrow and we'll talk about a schedule, and I keep what I earn plus the repairs on my car. And he says, deal. And then I highlighted that because I'm like, what do you mean you keep what you earn plus the repairs on your car? Wouldn't it be minus? That makes it sound like she's going to take the money that it takes to repair for her car. Like, the phrasing, I'm not even getting into the actual writing quality here, okay? And there is a lot. Trust me, there is a lot to critique about the writing quality and like actual sentence structure and a bunch of other stuff that I could like sit here all day and like talk about. We're strictly here for the plot. And chapter 5 ends with her going back to the restaurant the following day. She's working. They've agreed to 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. However, that quickly spirals into actually working like doubles all the time and coming in on extra days. If you've ever worked in the food industry, you understand, even retail, it's just how that stuff works. So then when we get into chapter 6, it is the day before Iron goes to prison, and so the boys are having a going away party. Christian shows up, and the intent really is that she's been hitting it off with Iron, and they're going to hook up to the point that he asks pretty blatantly, if you're not interested, you better tell me now. I have to be at the police station in 10 hours, and I plan on getting laid at least one more time, and I would like if it was you. She pushes back a little bit, and then he's like, no, really, like, I do want it to be you, though. They end up having a truth or dare that spirals into a wildly inappropriate taking clothes off and talking about inappropriate things at loud volumes in a room full of people where everybody is silent and staring at them. It derails or spirals, descends into absolute chaos and madness that results in a game that they play at their parties, which is essentially like strip tag, where the brothers and Araceli will paint their hands red, and then the people who are playing tag have to run between these different garages while the music's playing. And then they're going to try and run after these people and hit them with a hand, with like a red print. And if they get red, they have to take off their clothes, or like one article of clothing per handprint on them. I don't freaking know. Obviously, this ends up turning into everybody getting naked and drunk and like having a good time. She's the last one to get naked. And by the end of the night, he is all like emotional and opens up to her about leaving. And he's like, no, you're like, we're past that. Like, I can't sleep with you. Like, I have, too much feelings. Just like, stay with me. Don't leave me. I said I wanted to spend tonight with a girl, and I just wanted to spend it with somebody who saw me and like, you see me. Just, stay here. Of course, they end up banging, though. They end up banging on a pool chair in the backyard, again, in public. Everybody's off at the bar, like drinking, doing stuff at the other building. However, they are still out in the open space where anybody could see them. And of course, somebody sees them. Turns out it's the same creepy looming figure standing in the distance, smoking a cigarette just inside, staring at them. And she opens her eyes and she sees this, clocks this, and decides to just like keep her mouth shut and not say anything about it. I said, you sick And also, not to like unpack this in any way, but I feel like it's one thing to like watch it when she's doing something to herself, and it's another thing to watch your blood brother do some shenanigans with a woman. I feel like that's just an additional layer of like wildly inappropriate grossness that I don't know why somebody would ever write. I don't get it. I truly don't get it. But with this, she's able to narrow it down, because that means that the person who, did the couch stuff with her was not Iron, and it wasn't Trace, and she doesn't think it was Army because he already has a son. And so when he made the comment about like, if your daddy was my son, whatever he said, she's like, he would have said sons plural if it was Army. Okay. So anyway, I don't know what to do with my hands, dude. I think the only other thing to note is like through the night, she's observing more and more of the brothers and how they interact with other people. And the only one worth mentioning is Macon, who very, very clearly has a problem with alcohol and connecting to people. And he's just incredibly rude to everybody. He's very standoffish. He doesn't engage with anyone, and just like is depressed and will like isolate himself in the garage, or even during the party, he's like sitting on the couch ignoring people, even ignoring a woman who's like actively crawling on his lap, right? Like, there's something going on there, and she's clocking it, and she's like, I think I'm the only one that notices that something's wrong. In chapter 7, still Christian's POV, she ended up, this is horrifying, she ends up going to bed with Iron. Okay, that's fine, that's cool. Iron and Dallas, again, reminder, they're both in their early 20s, they share a room together. And so she's in Iron's bed, and she wakes up, and she opens her eyes, and she's looking at Dallas's bed. I open my eyes, about to get up, but there's Dallas, staring straight at me. I freeze for a second. How long has he been awake? I jerk my hands from under the covers. Oh, I think she was touching herself again. This freak nasty, dude. You're in pain, he whispers. It makes you prettier. Because she's like sore from last night. That guy's crazy. That might be one of the scariest things I've read in one of these books, dude. An hour later, they're standing outside of the jail and dropping Iron off. And there's like, cute little goodbyes while all the brothers are saying goodbye, obviously. But Macon did not go. Macon has completely refused to talk to Iron, did not say goodbye to him, did not come to drop him off at the jail, like is not engaging whatsoever. And it is really, really breaking Iron's heart. Of course it is. And he's like, he hates me, Iron says to Army, his chin trembling a little, but Army shakes his head. He loves you. That's why he's not here. And he does the very, very last goodbye is with Christian. And he's like giving her a hug and, you know, cute little banter. And she says, I joke in his ear, just don't ask me to wait for you, okay? Not me, he says, letting me go. But you will be a Jaeger someday. I look at him. You feel it, don't you, Christian? His eyes light up. You belong in that house. I swallow. Maybe I feel it. Maybe I feel it because I have nothing else and I'm too scared to try. Hiding in the bay for the rest of my life would be easy. I love it here. And so they go to leave and she turns to Army and she's like, he looks up to Macon, and Macon doesn't show up for anyone. I never saw him at any of Liv's games. This Liv is the sister. My guy, literally every single time a name comes back up, it would take me like 10 seconds to process who we were talking about. That's exactly why I have this name chart over here for you. Because the entire book, I would just be like, who is this? What? Who are they? Why do I care? I don't know what's going on. So yeah, I never saw him at any of the sisters' games. You know, he didn't even put an appearance at Dex's birthday party. I think Dex is Army's son. I honestly don't know. And so Army turns to her and he's like, once, he states, when we needed Macon, he was there for all of us. Well, not anymore. You don't get it. I love Iron, but all he did was think about himself. It's our turn, damn it. Macon needs us right now. I watch him walk off, realizing he's just as angry as Iron as Macon. He's just as angry at Iron as Macon is. Army hides a lot. Okay, so that day, they go on about usual business, right? She goes to work, the guys go to work, they come to the diner at 5 o'clock and have dinner. She's giving them, you know, she's delivering the food and whatnot. And while she's talking to them, BSing, she gets a phone call from the nanny who says, hey, you have to come home right now. I have things to do. Your mom is running late and I can't get a hold of her, but I have to leave. Like, you need to come back right now to get your siblings. And she's like, okay, yeah, I will. It's obviously kind of like a dinner rush. So it's very, very inconvenient that she has to go. And so Dallas, of all people, talks mad crap to her. And he's like, you can't leave. And she's like, I have to. It's family stuff. Talking crap. Trace and Army defend her. And Dallas is like, we'll leave the door open for you tonight. He taunts me. I'm sure you'll be back. But a small voice finally pipes up. Go take care of your family, Christian. I turn, following the direction of the whisper. All eyes turn to Macon as he rubs his own with his thumb and forefinger. I'm probably the only one who sees it. The way that they're watering. Yeah. Of course you are. So she gets up to leave and she's just reflecting on Macon. She's like, something's wrong. How can they not see it? Is it just Iron? Or I climb into my car and I sit there for a second, tears starting to stream, and I don't know why. It's changing. The bay can't change, but it is. Macon looks like he's dying. Liv gone at college. Iron gone at prison. Macon. Girl! Okay. So she feels bad for him because he's, you know, maybe coping a little bit rough with everything that's going on. In chapter 8, we're in Trace's POV. Cool. Liv and Clay are visiting, right? The sister and her girlfriend are visiting. And so they give Trace some context as to why she had to run off and go and do family stuff. So this is where we're introduced to the whole divorce, parent drama, her stepping in to take care of things. I just told you earlier because I'm not a tease. I'd rather just get it out of the way. And them, Trace and Army, learning about this tragic backstory, and maybe she's not just this shallow saint that we thought she is. Like, she has a lot on her plate. Trace, Army, and Army's little boy. How old is he? I don't know. 2 to 4 years old? They all pile into a car, drive to her house, essentially kidnap her and her siblings, throw them in the car, and they go and break into a house that they're landscaped for. They're like snowbirds, right? So they only are in the house in the wintertime. So they have a couple of weeks until they arrive. And so they like break into this house to have some ice cream and play house and pretend. And it's a family bonding chapter. The kids, while they're eating ice cream, ask if this is their house. And they say no. And then they describe their house. And it becomes this kind of like goofy hee-hee-ha-ha game where Army, Trace, and Christian are taking turns describing the like dilapidated home that they all live in. But it ends with Christian talking about, and there's a creak in this top stair, and there's a crack in it that I'm always as scared that I'll trip on. And you have to watch when you get to the top of the stairwell because there's this one spot and it leaks in the kitchen and you have to put buckets down. But it's like so beautiful and amazing. And just like going on about how much she loves this house. And Trace, in his POV can just feel the love that she has for their home and how he's never looked at it this way. And she's really just opening his mind to the beauty of their living situation. In chapter 9, back in Christian's POV, I have no idea how much time has passed and I'm over it. It's nighttime now and Megan is not in the garage and she's worried. I think it's after work and she delivers food to him every night after work. He never eats it though. She like finds all of the to-go containers in the trash can and all he does is just like drink booze. And so she's looking around for him because he's not where he usually is and he's not in the house and she's concerned. And she starts hearing yelling in the forest behind the house. She goes out there and there's a container, you know, like the ones that are on trains, like the shipping containers. She hides behind a tree and she sees in front of the shipping container, Macon is there and he's drowning a guy. And the guy's like, please, man, you know this isn't who I am. You know me. You can't do this to me. And he's just like dunking the dude's head. Turns out the dude has a problem with drugs and has been spending all of his money on drugs instead of feeding his own children. And so Macon is like teaching him a lesson and keeping him locked in this container for a couple of days while he detoxes so that then he can go back to his family and be a good parent and like not use drugs anymore. It's very traumatic. She's witnessing all of this and she's like, this is so crazy. He's such a family man. I wish I was kidding, dude. I wish I was kidding you. She hides behind the trees and kind of like follows along behind him as Macon goes back into the house. She sees him pause in front of the lawnmower because Trace was supposed to mow the lawn. It didn't happen and he left the lawnmower out and so it's been getting rained on and crappy and there's like beer cans stacked on top of it and she like sees him get angry about it. And so then she watches as he goes into the garage and grabs a bunch of rope and then goes inside the house. And she's like, oh my God, he's gonna strangle him. I have to stop him. And so then she goes inside of the house to try and like figure out what the heck is going on. But she realizes that Trace isn't home. There weren't any trucks in front of the house. So what could he possibly be doing? So she like follows him upstairs because he went to his bedroom and she's trying to listen for him. And then all of a sudden, the second she gets to the top of the stairs in front of his door, he opens it. And now he's looking at her like he's gonna strangle her. And she's all scared. She's like, I brought you your food. I just wanted to let you know. And then he just storms past her. Okay, I guess. I mean, that's kind of cool, I suppose. And she ends up going back to the restaurant or to go help out at the bar, I think, because there's like a big party that's coming. So she goes there for a little bit. All of the other brothers are at the bar and hanging out, BSing. Everybody loves her again. She's just having a good time. In the middle of like this whole bar thing, Trace is flirting with another girl. And so she's kind of sort of jealous, right? And so she tries to distract herself and do other things. And then all of a sudden she hears somebody say, you'll never look as good with any of us as she does. A familiar voice says. I hold back my groan as I wipe down the bar. Oh, we don't know that. I glance over at Dallas, who stands there with an empty beer bottle. I haven't been through everyone in the house yet. Why are you joking about it? It's so bad. At the end of the night, they're all going to the strip club. They ask if she wants to go, and she's like, I think I'll be jealous if I go. This is Army asking her. And so then he says, seeing Trace watch another woman dance. I shake my head, looking at him again, seeing all of you watch women dance. His smile softens, silence stretching between us. After a moment, he lowers his voice. It's my one night out. Dex is staying over at the Sitters. Dex is his son. Okay, good. I learned that, guys. Everything's fine. Dex is staying over at the Sitters. You should come. Also for context, Dex shares a room with Army. It's very, very limited spacing. That's why Iron and Dallas were sharing a room. And then Army shares a room with his infant son. Just very tight quarters. So he's like, yeah, hey, I don't got the baby tonight. You should come on over. She's like, oh, I really shouldn't. I need to get going. I walk toward the light in the garage. Macon shouldn't be alone so much. Can you guess what happens in chapter 10? Can you guess what happens in chapter 10? Probably one of the most crazy things I've ever read in a book, okay? She sees the garage light on, and she's like, all these guys have been partying all night with this, whatever type of party it was. I think it was like a vow renewal thing. I don't know. And then now they're going to the bar and club, and they're going to have so much fun, and Macon is just always here by his lonesome, and the light's on. Like, I need to keep him company. So she goes over there, and he's working on her car, right? He's completely, now at this point, he's gone through and like is using sandpaper, I guess, and like clearing off some of the paint to fix some of the chips and the nicks and the scrapes and whatnot that she has. And he fixed the tires and all the fluid, and he's just like completely making this car brand new, right? So she grabs a little bit of sandpaper and she finds this other little spot and she's like fixing it. And the next thing I know, he's standing over me. I look up, seeing a pair of gloves in his hand. I'm okay. Put them on now, he says. Women should have soft hands. I cock an eyebrow. Why? Because we're dainty? But he spits out, because you're mothers. I look up at him again, and for the first time ever, he blinks, and then he drops his gaze. Even when you're not. I don't know what that means, but I stop in my spot. I'm not a mom. I won't be one anytime soon. If you are not watching visually, I'm just looking around the room trying to find the point. I am genuinely trying to find the plot right now. I feel that we have lost it. I feel that I have lost the room. This isn't even the bad part. At this point, I am like genuinely just trying to procrastinate so I don't have to tell you the next part of this chapter. And so she, yet again, in the wake of the silence, because he doesn't talk at all, she just starts yapping. And she starts talking about her dad and, you know, he was different back then, but I guess he forgot all of the things that he loved. I guess I'll forget the things that I love too. Life takes you over like that. You lose yourself. Who you were when you were 5 was the real you before everything started to kill you. My father couldn't have been obsessed with his stock portfolio when he was a kid. He wanted other things. I see Clay's mom out in the world now. She's recently divorced. Buying a seaside cottage, learning to garden, wearing jeans and eating ice cream on the sidewalk. Regressing, my mom would say. A midlife crisis, she says. But it's not. Clay's mom isn't having a midlife crisis. She's remembering herself. Okay, cool. I guess that's some deep introspective discussion to have. They end for the night. And he tells her to wash her hands, and he realizes that she did not wear the gloves as he instructed, and so now she has grease and like oil and whatnot, I guess, all over her hands. And so he's trying to wash them for her. And she's like, have you ever been to a strip club? I can't imagine you at one. I was in the fucking military, Christian. My heart thuds hard. He knows my name. That's twice now that he said it. He knows me. She's 18, Kaylee. Kaylee, you have to remember this. She's 18. She's dumb. She doesn't know any better. It doesn't matter that this was written by a 45-year-old. It does, actually, deeply. So he's touching her hands and whatnot. And she's like flirting with him. She's like, I just think somebody shouldn't be making you smile, that's all. I'll be happy if the people around me ever do what they're told. He growls, rinsing off our hands. His scent drifts into my nose, and I fight not to curl my fingers around his. Tingles spread out my arms from my hands where we touch. Someone should be taking care of you at night. Oh, yeah. This is so gross. This is going to be like the fourth brother. He's done stuff with it. He's 32 years old. She's 18. Why is this happening? And there's no reason for it. There's no reason. She's just like throwing herself at this grown ass man. And so she literally, I stand there in my pale blue lacy bra and start to unfasten my jeans. You don't have to touch me. Just please don't look at my face. But he does. His gaze burns my cheeks. And she says, will you turn on the water from the hose that's in the garage? A little warm if you can. She's like, I have a trick I want to show you. And so she takes the hose, does some crazy stuff. We're not going to talk about it any more detail than that. She's going to hand it to him and be like, oh, so you saw what I did. Like, do you want to do it to me? And in response, he turns off the hose and instead turns on a vacuum cleaner, and he puts a vacuum cleaner on her private bits. My heart races as he switches the water back to the faucet, rinses off the end of the vacuum hose, and then presses the end of the long gray tube to my... You can imagine what happens. Well, I guess maybe not. So she, has a good time, and then at the end of it, he says, that was relaxing. Thank you. Our chests match in rhythm as he reaches into his pocket, and I look down to see him slip a 20 into the strap of my panties. My stomach knots. You're a good girl, he says. And then he presses a kiss to my forehead and walks back to the kitchen, closing the door behind him, leaving me alone with my jeans around my knees and not another look at my face or uttering my name from his lips. To be clear, I want all of us on the same page right now. Her jeans are around her knees, and she was actively using a hose to like use water pressure on her intimate areas. Her pants are soaking wet right now. Why didn't you take them off? The vacuum thing, I literally, when I got to that point in the chapter, I was literally like crying on the couch. My husband was like, "Are you good?" And I'm like, "You don't understand how horrible this book is." And then I got to the end when I found out her pants were still on. That's literally my note. She had her jeans on the whole time. She had her jeans on the whole time. In chapter 11, from Christian's POV, he just is blowing her off. Like, as the days goes on, he's just going back to like complete silent treatment and like not even acknowledging her existence. And she is understandably incredibly embarrassed, but she tries not to have that, affect her. She's going on about her life. And in this particular chapter, she is going back to her high school that she just graduated from. Okay? I can't make that any more clear to you. Like, graduated in the last 6 months, okay? Iron went to jail on Halloween, the day after Halloween. So we are literally in November. She graduated the May prior. We are talking freshly freaking graduated, okay? So she's going back to her high school to get a recommendation letter from a coach that she previously had in case she decides that she does want to go to college. She's gonna need a letter, right? While she's walking through the halls, she runs into these girls who are talking to her about how they want to go to the Bay because they want to hook up with the Jaegers as well because they've heard such good things about her. And she's like, "I know the Bay now. It's different. Don't cross the tracks," I warned them. "Can't make any promises." Kate starts to back up and the others follow. And she's like, "They don't even know their names and they're talking about wanting to hook up with them." And she's realizing why Iron got so mad about this whole using them just for clout almost, or not even clout. It's just it's almost like a tourism, like a tourist attraction type of thing. It's really, really weird. The way that we're talking about these men, the way that we're just talking about people in general in this book is very, very strange. But she's realizing this. She's like, they're humans to me now, and now I understand the way that they get objectified and treated by these rich people. Okay, sure, go off, bestie. She continues to go into the coach's office and somehow, some way sees into another office or the locker rooms and ends up seeing Milo hooking up with a 16-year-old, and she pretends to film it. Milo sees her and goes up to her and starts talking mad crap about how, half the parents here have interests in seeing that hole torn down. Talking about the Bay. They're all wondering how the Jaegers are able to keep the developers off their backs. Do they know? They do now. He ends up revealing to her that night, the Saints are going to cross the tracks and go and cause some trouble over in the Bay for some reason. I don't know, dude. So this grand plan gets revealed to her. She calls Liv and Clay and she's like, "Hey guys, there's something happening tonight and I'm gonna need your help and you just have to trust me." So we go into chapter 12, Army's POV. The boys are wrapping up their workday, right? They're throwing everything in the truck. They're about to head home for the day. It's been really stressful. It's Army, Dallas, and Trace. Trace is scrolling through his phone. On Instagram, he ends up coming across a post that Christian made that is of Liv and Milo, and they're at Christian's house. Understandably, the guys are pissed. Because they're like, what in the ever-loving F is our sister doing in the same room as her abuser, in the same photo as her abuser? And also, why in the ever-loving F is Milo at Christian's house? And on top of all of that, why is there a picture of it? What is happening? So they all whip it over to Christian's house to go and figure out what the heck is going on. They go there, the girls are in the pool, there's very clearly a party going on. And long story short, she threw the party in order to stop the Saints from going to the Bay, as a distraction, because it's supposed to storm that night. And whenever it storms, it gets under curfew and then people can't cross over into the Bay. I don't know. And so she threw this party to distract them long enough until the storm rolls in. he's like, so I don't understand. What does that have to do with you posting a picture on Instagram? And she's like, I posted it because I knew that Trace would see it and him and Dallas would come here. I didn't think that you would come, but I'm glad you did. Because Trace and Dallas are the most like reactionary ones, and so she wanted to keep them away from the area in case the Saints did get to the bay and cause some trouble. She wanted to make sure that they were like separated from the drama or something. And then also that's part of the reason why all the girls showed up to the party, because she was like, I'll get the 2 youngest ones here so you guys can like hook up with them. He's like, well, next time, you know, you can't be doing dangerous stuff and you have to let me know what's going on, but, you know, you should come over to the house tonight. And she says, no, because if I come with you, something's going to happen and I am afraid that I'll fall in love with you. So he invites her to the house again. And she says no again, and instead they bang in the hallway, in the wide open hallway, while everybody's partying around them. It's dark. It's a highlighter party, so it's like pitch black, and there's like UV lights everywhere, and there's like highlighter, you know, designs that people have all over their faces and shirts and stuff. And so it's dark, I guess, and so they're like kind of hidden off to the corner, like banging up against a wall. He's like 26 or 28. He's 26 or 28. Why are we doing this? Check another one off the list, I guess. She literally banged his brother the night before. Didn't bang him, but like he was doing stuff with him. I don't understand. After this whole scene, she tells him that Milo is locked in the pantry closet. They have a closet in their pantry. They have a room inside of a room, and that's where Milo is. And so Army, for some reason, goes in there, unlocks the door to the pantry, has some discussion with him. I think because the storm rolled in, so it's supposed to be under curfew soon. So they let him out so he can go and like cause trouble or wreak havoc or like whatever. And instead, now it's going to be a race. So Milo and his friends hop in a car and they start racing to go and cross the like one access bridge to get into the bay. And then the boys, you know, Army, Dallas. Oh no, Trace is staying back to hook up with people. So I think it's just Dallas and Army. They hop into the truck and they have to go this like back roadway to meet at the one bridge crossing point into the bay, because they're going to try and stop Milo from going there. And so they end up beating him, and they have freaking tire spikes in the back of the truck. And so they throw some tire spikes across the road. Milo goes flying over him. All of his tires pop. He ends up spinning out into a ditch. And they're like, oh, sweet, cool. Like, we got to get going now before he finds out that it was us. Who the fuck else would it be? And then they see another pair of headlights coming. And they're like, oh, man, yeah, throw the spikes again. We got to stop this one. And then at the last second, Army realizes that the car that is coming is Christian's, but Dallas won't let him pull the spikes back. And so now Christian's tires pop yet again. This freaking girl has gone through like at least 8 tires at this point. Trace shows up somehow, I think. Maybe he was in Christian's car with her. And Trace and Dallas continue on to the bay to go and do something. And maybe they stay with her car? I don't know what happens next. I just know that Christian and Army are left on a hill in the rain together, and they're dancing in the rain, and Army's like, well, I guess this is our first date, trying to make her fall in love with him. I honest to God, that is as clear as I could tell you of what's happening. And I feel like I'm speaking gibberish. And I know I have said that multiple times in this video so far, but this might be the most gibberish that I have ever felt. In chapter 13, we are back to Christian's point of view, and she is arguing back and forth with Army about whether she will go home with him or if she wants him to drop her off back at the house. She ends up going back to the house with him, okay? It's a whole thing. It is every single time. 3 a.m, and she gets up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, and she's in front of the bathroom door, and the carpet is wet. There's water on the floor, and she's like, what the heck is this about? She opens up the door, and the sink is broken, and the water's running, and it's dripping everywhere on the floor, and she looks over, and Macon is on the ground in the fetal position, zoned out, like catatonic. She says, what happened? Are you hurt? He doesn't reply. What can I do? Leave. I shudder inside. I don't want to leave. Did he get sick? Maybe he leaned on the sink too hard or fell into it, or he got angry and ripped it off the wall. I hold his eyes while his soften on me. You look pretty, he whispers. I want to touch him. I want to help. I hold back. This is so weird. And also, I just want to make it clear, Macon has his own bathroom. He has the master bedroom. So he has a bathroom in his bedroom, and he is instead choosing to have this scene in the communal bathroom. The next morning, she decides to wake up early and make breakfast for everybody. just to be nice. And she makes a little extra special smoothie just for Macon to, maybe he'll eat this. He doesn't eat any of the dinners that I bring, and he only ever, drinks tea or coffee at breakfast, but maybe he'll drink a smoothie. Maybe I can get him to have some nutrients in his smoothie. Sorry. And it ends up with, at the breakfast table, everybody's there eating, and Dallas is talking mad crap again about her being at the breakfast table, and him, again, just being like misogynistic. He says, "You're probably pregnant already." She says, "Uncle Dallas, I like the sound of that. Would you even know whose father it is?" "Well, it's definitely a Jaeger." Need to get like a brown paper bag. Please stop. Please, lady. More fighting, because now Army's pissed off about Dallas talking crap, and so is Trace, and so they're all kind of fighting, and eventually Macon, he's like, "Christian," he whispers yet again, and he's like, "Can you make me another one of these?" He's talking about the smoothies. He holds the mug with the smoothie, tipping it back and emptying it down his throat as he rises from the table. "And dinner tonight. Something different than what's on that menu, please." He leaves the table and heads for the garage. "I can get you something from town," Army calls out to him, but Macon shakes his head, his voice sounding strained. "Just her." Oh, he does know that I'm alive, and he wants me to cook for him. Okay. That night at the diner, she is working and thinking about what she's going to make for dinner to bring to him, and she gets a phone call from the nanny. Yet again, the mother is not showing up, and so she has to rush home and pick up the kids. And also, the mom's not paying the nanny, so the mom is running out of money. Even though she has a luxury vehicle and purses and jewelry and all this stuff, she refuses to sell any of it off. And so she is just stiffing the nanny and not giving the guy money. Rushes home, picks up the kids, and then rushes back so that she can continue working her shift at the restaurant and not screw them over. And she tells the kids to like pack an overnight bag and that they're going to have a sleepover at the Jaegers. And the kids are very, very excited to do so. Paisley really gets along with Army's child, Dex, right? Like they're friends, and she loves the attention from these like quote unquote uncles. And also, Mars is friends with some of the neighbor kids, and they're just hanging out with all the neighbor kids, and everything's great. She gets there, and then she calls Army to come and pick them up. Why can't she drive back? I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning is. I think because she doesn't want people to know that she's gone, maybe? Who knows? And so he picks her up and asks him to drive by this other neighborhood. She takes out a baseball bat, and she bashes in the windshield of her father's car at his affair partner's house. And then she gets back in the car and she says, "All right, we can go." It was like her sticking it to the man moment, because she's pissed off that this is like her parents are really impacting her and her siblings' life in such a negative way. And I think it's because, is this the day before Thanksgiving? I think this is the day before Thanksgiving. She's like, "I'm not taking my siblings to my relatives tomorrow. My father can send a cop if he wants to deal with me about his windshield, and my mother can send one too if she wants the kids back." So the next morning she wakes up, and Clay and Liv ended up coming home for the holiday, so they're hanging out all day, and then they end up doing like a potluck type of Thanksgiving meal, and she's so excited for everyone to celebrate because her family has had such strained relations, and it's just been such a pain, and she really believes in holidays, but she's never had one before, and this is the first year that she's been with a family that really celebrates and spends the entire day together, and she's so happy. She's so excited to have this time with them. So they have this potluck, and it's absolutely delicious, and everybody's having such a good time. At the end of dinner, everybody kind of separates, and it ends up being just a few of the adults left in the kitchen. Again, Dallas just continues to talk crap. And eventually she brings up the fact that she had seen their parents at one point right before they died. I don't care to read the context of this. I think this is just a Thanksgiving sharing time. She says, "I saw your parents in town once. Just once, though. They didn't cross the tracks much. Your dad was on his bike, and he pulled up to the Harbor Point fishing boat, stopping at the curb. She'd been waiting for him. She came in close, bowed her head, and kissed him. He slid his hand up the back of her thigh. You must have been at least 20 or so at the time, because I was old enough to remember. That long married, and they were still like that. But when she pulled back, he slapped her on the ass, and she smiled before climbing on behind him. I asked my mom why he hit her and why she liked it." Dallas, frozen and blinking, a whisper of a smile curls Trace's mouth. "My mom said, 'Make no mistake, honey, she's the boss of him.' And years later, I understood. I softened my voice. Women love being owned by a good man. I wouldn't do anything Jerome Watson told me. but I would for someone. Someone I can't keep my hands off. Someone who climbs on top of me and pins my arms above my head before we're fully awake in the morning, without a word, slow and quiet. I'm the first thing he wants. He's late to work all the time because blah, 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 blah. I used to want to do certain things with my life when I was younger, but now I don't know what the hell I want except to just be in love with someone and love our family, to be with people I care about and have great days in a football team in our house, helping other people make memories and making sure we all smile 10 times more than we cry. I don't give a shit about tomorrow. I never did. I just wanted to be good for people. And so she gets up to go and clean some plates. Instead interrupts and he's like, you guys can leave. I'll clean up with her. Macon sits back down in his seat. Gaze is still down, and Trace looks back at Dallas. Now, Army orders. So Trace and Dallas leave the room. The oldest is still there because Army doesn't give him orders, being Macon. I veer around Army, setting down my plate, but he grabs my face in both hands. I gasp, forced on my tiptoes as he presses our foreheads together. It's going to be one of us, he tells me. Not Jerome Watson. You'll be ours. Or I'll make sure we all fuck you before we give you back so nothing compares, so you always regret leaving us. And so then Army goes into like pressing her against the fridge and making out with her and taking her shirt off in the kitchen in front of Macon. Macon is fully witnessing what is happening right now. And so he continues, Army continues whispering, and he's like, we're gonna keep you. Will it be Iron? Trace? Who do you want? Ew, this is so bad. And so then in the middle of him like stripping her down, Macon interrupts and he says, Christian, come here. And he says, come here again. And so she does, and Army just sits there watching what's happening at the head of the table, and he stands rising above me. He tips up my chin looking down at me, and I can already feel his arms around me so tight, his breath on my temple and the warmth of his chest. He reaches behind his head, pulling off his shirt, and I know he's going to lift me up. He's going to lift me into his arms and look into my eyes and not look away. But he doesn't do any of that. He slips the shirt over my head, covering me. Then he looks at his brother. You know she's not her, right? He asks him, a stern look in his eyes. You do realize that? I glance back at Army, and then back at Macon again. Her? Who are they talking about? And chapter 14 is from Army's point of view, and her is Dex's mom. Army had fallen for a saint previously who does end up, like, she does look a lot like, oh my god, what is this? Christian. Dude, the amount of names in this, you can't tell because my editing software will cut these, but there are times in saying these names where it is a 10-second silence where I rack my brain about who I'm talking about. So the baby mama does look like Christian. And so Army was like very, very traumatized by this relationship because he loved her so much. But she got pregnant and then abandoned the baby with him and then like wants nothing to do with it and has completely been removed from their lives. Also part of the reason why the brothers all hate Saints so much and why they have been so like standoffish with her and like not embracing her as being like an actual partner. You know what I mean? That's where all of this drama is coming from because he had his heart broken by one before. So Macon bringing this up really, really pisses Army off. And so they end up having this like fight back and forth. He's like, you bring her into this? I can't believe you. I've been the only one on your side. I've protected you like a goddamn brick wall so they never know how weak you really are. I've always been your brother and you treat me like I fucking work for you. You do. I rear my arm back and I punch him, my fist exploding as it cracks against his jaw. And so they end up like absolutely rolling around the floor, beating the ever-loving crap out of each other, breaking the tables, breaking the glassware all over the house, and just like dumping everything out that they've been meaning to say for so long. And Army's like, do you love me at all? Do you love us? Do you feel anything for Liv or Trace or anyone? And all Macon says back is, you don't have to live here. Oh my god. And Trace ended up coming back in the room and he heard this. And so he's like, Macon said, no one lives here, Macon. No one really wants to be here. And then Christian's like, Army, don't do it. Army looks over at Macon and sees Macon looking at Christian. And he's like, oh, you're paying attention to her? You have an eye for her, don't you? Oh, Jesus, how many times did you tell us to stay away from them and now you want one? You want her. I don't want her, he fires back. I just don't want to have to feed another one of your kids. Oh my god. And in the middle of like this about to like regenerate or rejuvenate the argument, generate a new argument, whatever, a new fist fight, he gets a phone call and it's from the prison. And it's the first time that Iron has been able to call them. So obviously he picks it up. They have a little bit of conversation, and Iron's one of his first questions is, hey, is he still mad at me, or you think Macon's ready to talk to me on the phone yet? I pull the phone away from my ear and I hold it out to my older brother. I look at him and he looks at me. The phone's suspended between us because this is my role, isn't it? The one who cares, the one who signed permission slips and went to conferences and took them to the doctor and the dentist and bought their Halloween costumes and whatever the he didn't want to do. Oh yeah, he paid for it, so that absolves him of never showing up. So they end up hanging up on the phone, and he's like, that is the straw that like breaks the camel's back, where Army is like, you worthless POS, you can't even talk to him on the phone, he's heartbroken without you, and you're just destroying this family, and goes on this like entire thing. And then Christian keeps trying to interrupt, and then Trace keeps trying to grab her and take her away and get her like out of the room and whatnot. And instead of like allowing her to leave, Army grabs her, holds her in front of him. Everything about her is sweet. About Christian is sweet. And I know that this is exactly what he needs. I whisper, we could share her. His eyes narrow. Her breath grows smaller against my body. And he's like, we could go to the boat tonight, just the two of us. We could give her the time of her life. Like, this whole thing. And he's like, it's been a long time for you, hasn't it? Like, you haven't done anything in a long time. Goes on about how nice it is to like bang her. And he's like, if anything, I mean, you could have her all to yourself if you want to. You know, just touch her, I beg him. Please fucking touch her. Be a fucking man instead of a machine or a piece of furniture. Let's go out. Me, you, her, no pain, just tonight. Oh, excuse me? And so, luckily, I guess, thank God, the whole time I was thinking, girl, get up. Get up. And she does. For once, she like turns around and she slaps him and she says no. And they go back to fist fighting. And then all of a sudden the cops appear, because I guess they usually come over for Thanksgiving dinner. And so they walk into this huge fight that's happening. Macon yells at them and tells them to take Army to jail. He says, take him. He needs to go stay in a cell tonight to cool off. Get him out of my face. They start to arrest him, and Christian tries to get involved, and she ends up like pushing one of the cops. And so she ends up getting arrested as well. And the whole time, Army is thinking to himself, as he and her are getting dragged to the police car, he's like, Macon doesn't mean this. He's just joking, or he's just trying to like prove a point or whatever. He's just upset because I said, we don't want to live here. He doesn't mean this. This isn't going to happen. I have my kid to take care of. She has her siblings to take care of. This isn't going to happen this way. But it does. Macon never tells them to stop. And so they get thrown in the back of the cop car. Luckily, Dallas comes up and they're able to tell Dallas and Trace to watch the kids for the night while they get taken away. I'm like, and it's just, the idea of it is absolutely insane to me. Also, just for the fact of like, their other brother is currently in prison. And so you would think that he would do anything in his power to keep the family together and keep the family unit safe. But obviously there's some like elder sibling burnout of taking care of all of these kids and like putting it all on his back to raise them in the last 8 years and like whatever. He's at his breaking point. So they get thrown into the cop car and they're getting driven to the station, and the station's across. There's not like a station in the bay. It's over in St. Carmen. So they're getting driven. It's a pretty long drive. And so they're in the back BSing. They're having the reflection and back and forth. And Army is realizing that Christian is also an oldest child. And so she doesn't understand the burden. Hold on. How is this described? Because I'm an eldest child as well. Eldest daughter syndrome runs heavy in me. And so I didn't understand this perspective. And I thought that this was like really, really interesting. They have a burden that I'll never know, but they are also a burden they will never understand. Something goes wrong with kids who are forced to parent their siblings. In 10 years, she could be blaming Mars and Paisley for her shitty life because, well, everything would have been fine if they didn't exist, right? I mean, we're the sole reason that Macon is a monster, right? And so the burden that the younger children carry being the fact that they are a burden to their eldest siblings. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a dichotomy, or not a dichotomy. It's like a symbiotic. It's like a thing where they like kind of feed off of each other. One feeds the other one, and it's like nobody's winning. Basically, both of them are troubled by the relationship that they have when siblings are forced to parent each other. And then, long story short, it ends up with the two of them banging in the back of the cop car, literally while the cops are driving, and the cops are telling them to like knock it off and to chill out, and then they don't. And then eventually the cops pull over to the side of the road and get out and tell them to make it quick. And Army tells them to shut off the dash cam, and then he like pulls out a condom somehow. I'm not sure where the hell that came from. He's not handcuffed, but she is. And so he's like doing all this stuff, and then they end up doing it in the car. And then the cops come back when they're done, and the cops are like, "Get out of here, dude. Just walk home. You better not have got anything on my seat." Ew. So they finally get home that night in chapter 15, and they're all asleep. The baby is sleeping in Liv's room. They ended up going to stay with like Clay's parents or something. And so baby Dex is in that room, so that way Army and Christian have, some privacy. The baby monitor goes off, and she tells Army not to worry about it, and she'll go take care of the baby, and she does. So she's like singing him and cradling him and putting him back to sleep, and she's having this like motherly moment and remembering what Macon had said to her about how all women are mothers even when they aren't mothers. And then she goes downstairs to the kitchen to try and find her phone. She left it behind when they had the whole scuffle earlier. And she gets some water, and while she's down there, somebody appears behind her. In the Marines? He says, his breath on my ear, "But it's not Army. We'd call you a barracks rat. A girl who moves from room to room to room." They have a little bit more of a back and forth, and her trying to bond with him, and he finally opens up about all the trauma and why he was so stressed out today. And he says, "I'm not worried about the bay and how a year from now, Trace will be greenskeeper at the country club they'll build on this land his ancestors settled. Army will be living in a trailer. We'll never see Dallas again, and Iron will be perpetually in and out of prison for the rest of his life. Because no matter what I did, I failed at making any kind of difference. My eyes sting. None of that will happen, and can't. I love them a little more tonight, and I dislike you a little less." He raises the bottle, takes a swig, sets it back on the table, letting his eyes fall down my body. "And maybe I can almost see what they like about you." And then she's like, "Well, where do you think you'll be? You said where they will go, but like, what about you?" And he says, "Oh, I don't think I'll stick around here much longer either." And it's just eerie and creepy, and it kind of freaks her out a little bit. And then he goes back up to his room, and she's worried about him. She's worried that he'll do something. And so a tear spills down my cheek, and I walk to Army's room, but I don't go in. Instead, I cross the hall to Macon's. Leaning my back into the wall next to his door, I slide down the floor and I listen for him in the room where she died. Their mother took her own life in their bedroom, in the master bedroom that he currently sleeps in and lives in. That is horrifying, dude. In chapter 16, we get a POV from Dallas. This is the first one, and I think the only one. I think the only other Dallas POV is the bonus chapter at the very end that I didn't and I will not read. But this one is a lot because, again, he is an incredibly misogynistic, horrible person, and like it's very scary almost to be inside of this man's head, and I did not like it, and we'll unpack that in a second. But I need to read you the opening line, okay? The literally opening line of the chapter. Opening paragraph. "The first thing I ever wanted to be in life was a poet. Since I was a kid, before the drinking, the sex, before I dabbled in coke, started grinding my teeth more than I smiled, and constantly began looking for the next fight, and the next one, and the next one. Without ever writing a word, I was a poet. I saw beauty in the unlikely places that scared my parents, in abandoned train tracks, the foster home hells where my friends lived, in house fires, motorcycle crashes, and the destruction in the wake of a storm, in living too hard and dying too young, in tears, in bruises, and in abandonment. I didn't hate these things because these things were profound, horrible, tragic, but profound, and profound is beautiful because it changes us." I said, okay. And so then he goes on to be like, "The world is full of beautiful things, but almost no one sees it. No one except Christian Conroy. She's one of the most beautiful things I've ever encountered. Beauty in motion in everything she does. She's slow, considerate in her movements, artful. She's in love with being alive, and that's also why I despise her. She can be what I can only see. She's the breath others breathe. I'll never be beautiful like that." And it gets revealed a little bit later on in the book that Dallas had a gay relationship with a guy from high school. Guy's dad found out, and then it was like this whole big drama situation. Oh, I think it was Garrett Ames, the rich guy that's like trying to buy the land. It was his son that they got caught. Dallas and his son got caught hooking up. And it was this whole thing. And so other than obviously the sister and her relationship and like the queer representation there, in this story, the only queer person that we have is a literal freaking psychopath who has this like internalized hatred for this woman and like is projecting it in a really, really bad way. Is like, I don't know, man. It made me feel really weird. It made me feel really, really weird when that was like his character trait. And like, that's why spoiler alert, she and Dallas never hook up ever. They're like kind of into it and he kind of likes her and whatnot, but not necessarily in that way to go all the way. But even though maybe possibly it just doesn't happen. I don't know. Don't look at me. I just like, it's just weird. Anyway, the purpose of this chapter though, they're going to the Bug Jam. What's the Bug Jam? We'll get to it. It's like this little event thing though that happens in St. Carmen, and Christian is wanting everybody to go. She wants to have a family outing and she wants to get a reason to have Macon leave the house and, you know, bond and have a good time and whatnot. And in doing so and prepping for it, Dallas goes to grab a beer and finds all the beer missing because Christian went ahead and threw out all of the booze in the house because she doesn't want him drinking. She doesn't want Macon drinking. So Dallas starts to pop off and he's like, who do you think you are? You can just come into this house and do all these things. Blah, 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 blah. And so she runs upstairs and she's like, Dallas, oh my God, there's something up here. You have to come with me. I have to show you something. So he comes up there. And then she pulls him into one of the rooms and shuts the door and drags him over to the window. And she's like, look at him, look at Macon down there, staring at stuff, staring into space like a soulless little being. You're telling me he doesn't remind you of your mom right before she offed herself? I said, what the fuck? So she goes on this like whole thing of like, you don't see these symptoms. She like rattles off all of the things to look out for somebody when they're in these like really bad depression spirals. She's like, do you see that? That's why we're doing this outing. That's why we have to go as a family. We have to, you know, X, Y, Z. And he's like, wow, maybe she really does care about us. Maybe she's not a piece of crap like I thought. And so he ends up inviting her to ride on the back of his motorcycle to the Bug Jam, and she does, and they bond, and they have a great time, and everything's cool. However, when they get to said Bug Jam, and she gets off the back of the bike, he's like, I was starting to hate her. I love staring at her, but I hate her all the same. I want to be her some days and make her cry most others. I want her to hit me, and sometimes I want her to feel me in the dark. I'm not beautiful in anything I do, but I will change her. And she asks him what he's afraid of, and he says, you. The last woman to live in our house other than our sister was our mom. And, you know, she like broke all of us and he's worried about her being there. When she gets off of his bike at the Bug Jam and she goes and runs off to go and do stuff with the kids, it's Dallas and Trace that are behind. And Dallas says she'd be a sight to see with all four of us. I say before I can stop myself. And Trace turns to him and he's like, excuse me? I've been trying to get rid of her, but I've been completely ignoring how useful she could be. What the hell are you talking about? She'd do anything for us, Trace, for the Bay. Christian Conroy on camera would buy us our land and anything else we wanted for good. Her grandfather would pay whatever it took to keep that video quiet. Meaning, let's make a X-rated video. All of us brothers and her. And her father's like some really big famous judge down in the area. I didn't mention it before. He's the one that technically sentenced Iron to go to prison. So there was like some weird dynamic there before. And then, he can pull a lot of strings. So they're like, we can use it as blackmail. Don't tell me that the idea of your older brothers having something you got to have first doesn't turn you on. Ew. Hello? I literally feel like the nausea welling inside of me right now. And then he looks up and sees all these cameras everywhere, like around the park. Anyone, and a lot of them are live streaming, anyone, no matter where they are in the world, can see us right now. My body warms. Taking out my phone, I tap out a text. I know you're watching. The message reads, delivered. Then read. I smile, putting my phone away. Okay, this is one thing. I'm just going to bring it up now. Who is this that he's texting? We never find out. You might think, oh, well, maybe it's Macon, but Macon is with them. He came with them to the bug thing, so that wouldn't make any sense. I don't know. It's weird. In chapter 17, back in Christian's point of view, at the Bug Jam, she's running around having a good time, and in one of the pavilions, she runs into Jerome, arranged marriage guy, and he's confronting her about dodging him and talking a little bit of crap and whatnot, and he's like, you know, you can have all the fun you want, but you're gonna end up with me anyway, blah, 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 blah. And then she feels arms wrap around her, and she looks down and sees the Ben 10 bracelet, and she's like, oh, it's Army. He's standing up for me. The guy holding her is like acknowledging all the stuff that Jerome is saying and listening to him talk crap And then at the very end of the discussion, he's like, she's mine. She's not going anywhere. And she realizes that it was Macon that was holding her and making a little stance to this Jerome guy. And then they end up going over to the competition. And so the Bug Jam is a competition of how many people that you can fit in your car. I don't know. But it ends up with all of them getting in like really, really tight quarters. And she ends up on Macon's lap, like straddling him. And so they have a whole moment where they're all like smushed together and like bonding or whatever. And then they lose, but that's fine, I guess. They still had a moment regardless. And she leaves to go and do something else. And she's by herself walking around the fairgrounds. And she ends up going down this dark alleyway and she gets mugged. It's not funny. But in chapter 18, she's actively getting mugged by the 3 girls that she ran into when she went back to the high school, the ones that wanted to hook up with a Jaeger. And for some reason, I'm not sure why those 3 hate her and are like beating the ever-loving crap out of her. But the one who is leading this incident is Milo. Milo like punches her and kicks her to the ground, and then he tells the girls to finish her off and don't stop until something is broken. Does anybody know why? I mean, Milo's a controlling piece of crap, and you know, maybe she embarrassed him or whatever, and so this is like payback. But again, I don't know why these girls... So she keeps getting up. And it's this like really cheesy stuff where she's like, if there's anything about a saint, it's that you can't keep us down. So she like just keeps getting up. Eventually, Araceli comes and saves her, and they keep it a secret of who attacked her. And so, like, when Macon and the boys all show up and they're like, oh my God, are you okay? They keep it hush-hush. And one of the reasons that Araceli was able to get them to stop was because she was like, hey, dumbass, there's a camera right there, and it's live streaming. They know what's happening. And that's the other reason that Christian never fought back, or she didn't like punch any of them back, because she knew it was on video. And so she was like, this is all the proof that I ever need that Milo's a horrible person, or that like I can press charges or whatever. Because even if they have this footage wiped, somebody's live streaming it, somebody's taping it somewhere. Again, for what reason? It doesn't come up in this book. Is it used later maybe at some point? I don't know. So they go home. Macon is helping her out in the communal bathroom and being all weird about it. And the next morning, she wakes up and they're clearing out their mom's art studio. So they've had the mom's art studio hidden and locked away, and nobody has been able to use that room or go in that room for the last 8 years. But now all of a sudden, Macon is, you know, wanting to hook up with this girl, and so now he's willing to clean out his mom's room. You have a man sharing a room with a baby, and you got 2 20-year-olds sharing rooms together. But no, we're not going to touch mom's studio until you get some Okay, that's fine. That's fine. She goes outside, and she hears more screaming, and she follows the voices. Yeah, I don't know. Stop looking at me like that, dude. This book is freaking insane. She hears more screaming outside. She goes to follow it. It's from a, like, block or 2 away, and turns out it's the guy that Macon was torturing in the backyard a week or 2 ago. Apparently, the guy started using drugs again, and there was no food in the house, and so now Macon is teaching him, like, the ultimate lesson, and, you know, beating the ever-loving crap out of him, and the guy's like, man, I want to die. I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do this. And so Macon is like, oh yeah, do you? Is that what it is? And like drags the guy all the way over to Marriott's. And in the back of Marriott's, the diner parking lot, there is a small junkyard with a compactor, like for cars. And so he throws this guy in a car that is in the compactor actively, throws him in there, and starts to use the compactor to like crush him to death. Okay. And so she's like, you can't do this. This is horrible. And he's like, people say they want to die all the time, Christian. Most don't. They're just tired of fighting to live. They're tired of problems, tired of nothing ever changing, tired of money, people, themselves, so tired of themselves and being in their own heads. Right now, he's remembering the color of the wrapping paper at his 5th birthday, how good a cheeseburger tastes, how he wanted to have a store of his own someday, learn to surf, and to see some redwoods, the time he laughed so hard while watching a movie with his mom one night, how it felt to wake up to the smell of good food cooking, and how it felt to kiss a beautiful girl for the first time. And that one time, the night air smelled like flowers. The top was down and his song came on. The wind was the perfect temperature. Right now, he's remembering everything he's forgot. Call back to what she said to Macon about her father forgetting everything that he used to love, right? So he stops the thing. He doesn't actually kill the guy at all, but he just like does it enough to freak him out a little bit, and people have to pull him out. And hopefully this was like the wake-up call that this guy needed, like the near-death experience that this guy needed to get his life together. And so he storms away, and then now it's just Araceli and Christian sitting there together. And Araceli's like, don't you ever do that again. I.e., don't interrupt or like throw yourself in between these things when he's trying to teach a lesson to somebody like that. Because Araceli was there in the house with the tortured guy. She was like taking care of the kids while he was dealing with business and dealing with the wife and whatnot. And Christian's like, he's such a hypocrite. Like, he can't tell people, you know, to live and do all this stuff when, you know, he's just isolating himself and like doing all of these things. And she's like, yeah, he can, because he cares more about their lives than he ever did his own. And so in chapter 19, it's the next day. She's showering. Trace just hops in the shower with her, just like they're friends. Other than the fact that he's like staring at her boobs and stuff, she's like, oh, this is like so family. This is so cool. I feel like we're like kids and our moms are bathing us in the bath when we're 4 years old again. What a weird thing to say. But he's like, I'm glad it's Army that you're with. Army's good. He's not stupid enough to let you go. And she's like, well, he knew that I would be a good waitress. I bet you're glad that he had the bright idea to offer me the job, and now you get to see me every day. That was Macon, actually, he says. I pause as he steps out, grabbing a towel and wrapping it around his waist. What? He nods. Yeah, he was the one who sent Army after you that night. He told him to bring you back. And she's like, oh my God, this is so crazy. And then there's a whole scene about like him almost getting bit by a snake or something and not caring because he cares more about their lives than he ever did his own. And there's been some hints of it throughout the book that I've like continued to skip. But there's been some encounters with snakes and an alligator and just some other instances where he's having just generally reckless behavior because he is having some ideations and just not caring about life and whatnot. And so with realizing this, how much that he's tempting death, she decides to lie and say that she's going to work, but instead she hides out in her room and she waits until everybody else leaves. And when she knows that Macon is downstairs and working in the garage, and so she has like a couple hours of free time before he comes back upstairs, and she sneaks into his room to snoop around to try to find something that he would use to end his own life because she's scared and she wants to hide it from him. And so she ends up finding a gun in his bedside table. And I was like, I don't feel like, you know, he's got some crime stuff going on and there's a whole bunch of shenanigans and he's got a lot of people that doesn't like him. Like, having a gun in your bedside table in Florida is probably not the most atrocious thing. I think that might be completely unrelated to this current concern, you know what I mean? But my question was like, where's the rope that we talked about earlier that he got from the garage? It never gets brought up again. Where did it go? I was assuming that it was for this whole ideation thing, but she didn't find it in this moment. If she was going to find anything, I figured it would have been that, because that's how their mother ended her life. So I was like, oh, that's what's happening. That's the insinuation here, but that like loop never gets closed. It never gets like brought up again or anything. Anyway, she goes downstairs afterward. She like hides the gun in Liv's closet in the very back of it or something. And she's like, okay, he'll be safe for now. She goes downstairs. She starts cleaning the entire house. Like, she cleans out the fridge. She like organizes the pantry. She's like, you know, cleaning out all of the kitchen drawers and vacuuming them all out and just like top to bottom doing everything. And he comes inside and he's like, oh, I thought you were working today. And she's like, no, I just, you know, makes some type of excuse. So then he starts coming inside a lot more, just kind of making excuses to visit her while she's doing this. And she starts cooking dinner, and then he ends up sitting down and eating with her, and he eats the first like actual meal that he's ever had, at least like in front of her with her, and eating a full meal. And she, again, just yapping in the silence because he's not talking, and ends up telling him about all of the rumors that she's ever heard about him. How a man over here hit his wife and you forced his hand into the spinning wheel of a motorcycle. How you and Army sold drugs in order to pay the bills. How you keep the alligators well fed. That you allow duels in this one field. That there's treasure concealed in one of the graves at the cemetery. You cut yourself and make them drink your blood to prove their loyalty. Whole bunch of things. And then the last one that she says is how he is, what does this say? How every woman on their 18th birthday has to be submitted to you for first refusal, and that you secretly own parts of St. Carmen. And he says, like real estate, and she says, like people. Some of the children are yours, they say, that you have a plan to breed us out. He can't stop himself. He laughs, bowing head, still holding his fork. And then he looks at me disbelieving. What the fuck? I sound like the devil. And then she's like, so are you telling me none of the other stuff is true? Or are you telling me it's all fake? And he's like, just keep your ass out of the cemetery, okay? He says. I laugh, seeing his half smile and light in his eyes, lighter than I've ever seen them. And I know then and there that I won't give up this family until I know that someone is loving him, until he's in her arms. Cut to chapter 20. Also, just to note the outfit change, I took a shower really quick because I need to be going to bed soon, but I want to knock out as much of this book as humanly possible. I would love to finish filming this tonight, but we are only 64% of the way through this godforsaken book. So we'll see what happens next. And then also, just if you happen to be visual, I am not wearing makeup, but I literally have my lips and my eyebrows tattooed. So this is not like a genuine no makeup look. I'm as high maintenance to be low maintenance as you could possibly be. In chapter 20, she is sneaking into the country club that we mentioned earlier. She's wearing her high school uniform, sneaking in so nobody will bat an eye at an unaccompanied minor, her words, not mine, while she goes into this, because apparently the high schoolers have like some volunteer hours and a lot of them just do the volunteer hours at the club. So she's sneaking in under the guise of that being what's going on. And she's sneaking in there to break into her dad's locker while he plays racquetball so that she can go through his phone and get a bunch of information off of it. Checks out. His locker code is the same combination that he uses for everything, so she knows exactly what it is, and she gets in there real easy, and she's taking a bunch of screenshots and then sending them to herself. Don't worry, she goes through and she deletes the screenshots and deletes the sent messages and even empties out the trash can and whatnot so she won't get busted. But my question is, she has her phone with her. Why don't you just record you scrolling through the other phone? Do you know how much easier that is and how much faster you can go? And like, there's no evidence of anything happening on the other phone. But that's also coming from somebody who got cheated on a lot. You get real good at snooping through people's phones. I'm only half kidding. But yeah, that was so stupid to me. It was just weird. So she's going through, she's trying to find like text messages and documents and random things because she's going to get this little dossier together to blackmail her father and get more money out of him. We'll get there. When she goes to leave the country club, of course, she runs into Army yet again. She's like, what are you guys doing here? It's like nighttime. You guys should be off of work by now. And he's like, well, I should be asking you the same thing. And he takes her into the wolf room, or the wolf, we'll call it the wolf room. And it's this little secret room that's under a stairway outside where nobody would expect it. Everyone would just assume that it was storage. But actually, it's this super ultra secret crazy meeting room. It comes up again later. But he takes her in here, and Trace and Dallas are in there. So we got 3 of the brothers, and they propose the idea of making like an X-rated video with her and to use it as leverage to get stuff out of people in the city. And she's like, yeah, that's not a bad idea. And Dallas starts to like make a move on her and do stuff. And she's thinking about how she's going to say no and stop it when she has a bodyguard assigned to her named Santos. I haven't talked about him. He's come up like one other time. Santos appears in the doorway and he says, this isn't happening. Macon wants her home now. Like, this is a terrible idea. And they're like, how did you know we were here? Oh my God. And of course there's a camera in the room. So Macon has been watching like a little creepy creeper from the little corner room recording of everything. And so she gets taken home by Santos. Like, he has to drive her home. Like, they do not trust her to actually go there. So when all of them get home, Macon is sitting in the dark living room, smoking a cigarette, being pissy, being angry. You can feel the rage boiling off of him. When they get in there, he's like, yells at the boys to go upstairs. And he confronts Christian for being a dummy. He tells her that she's the stupidest person that he's ever met in his entire life. And she's like, I don't know what you mean. And I was like, what do you mean you don't know what he means? I feel like that's a pretty straightforward sentence for somebody to say to you. And she's like, I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to film the video. Like, I was just thinking about it. I wasn't going to do it. I was just thinking about it. But he pulls out his phone and he shows her a recording on his phone. And it is from the cop car. It's from the dash cam. It's a video of her banging Army. And so he's like, we already have content like this if we wanted to use it. Like, we already have that leverage if we wanted it. And she realizes, but he hasn't used it. he cares about me. And also that means he's watched the video. And yeah, so then she's like, why haven't you used this? And then she goes on to say, what if I'm not strong enough? What if I give up and I go home for Mars and Paisley? Jerome Watson is willing to pay a lot for me. What if, but I can't continue. Jerome Watson is promising a nice house and nice clothes and nice servants, and my family can keep living how they're used to, but what if I give in? I try to find my words. I thought for a minute maybe it would be a good idea to use the only thing I have if it would win the bay for you before I go, before I let someone I hate do those things to me for the rest of my life just for some lousy money. And then he's like, whatever, I think he hugs her or something, and she's like, I'll never do anything like that, I promise. Talking about making a video. And he says, if you do, he strokes my hair, I'm gonna lock you in your room. And I felt like I was reading Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. I have a review on it if you would like to watch it or if you're unfamiliar. In that one, it is a 19-year-old girl on her 19th birthday. She goes to a movie, ends up sitting next to a 42-year-old man. They really, really hit it off, and it turns out that that is her boyfriend's father. Obviously, she ends up banging her boyfriend's father, and they end up having this like weird dynamic relationship where sometimes he acts like her father, and then sometimes he's like wanting to bone her. And so he wishy-washies between like, oh, you're so hot, and oh, go to your room. And I don't know why. I don't know why we would cross those lines. I don't know why we would blur any of those lines. But I'm also asking this about somebody who wrote a book about an uncle fucker. So why do I even... Hey man, if you're an author out there and you've ever doubted that your books could be published or that you were good enough, I would just like to tell you that you are. And I believe in you. And you should really write that book, bestie. You really should write that book. And so that night, she ends up sleeping in his room with him, I believe. And then in chapter 21, we're still in Christian's perspective. And the following morning, he has locked himself in the master bathroom and the shower has been running for like an hour and a half and he's not responding to anybody and everyone's freaking out. She ends up picking the lock, goes into the bathroom. She tells the others, go away. I'll handle this. Just go about your day. I'll take care of things. So he's sitting in the bathroom, like fetal position, in the shower, fully clothed, water running over him, as hot as the faucet will possibly go, having another bit of a breakdown about life and everything. And she's like, just talk to me. And he's like, I don't want anybody. Just please be gone. I just want to be gone. He says, don't see me. Please don't see me. You have to go. And, goes on to have a very, very deep discussion, objectively, about how depression feels, and he just can't pull himself out of it, and he doesn't understand how he feels this way, but I now know why my mother did it. She loved us too much to let her see weak for one more moment. She stopped being there for us long before she died, and she just couldn't stand being aware of that anymore. My woman is out there somewhere, and I'm gonna let her find another man because it will kill me when I fail her. I don't want her to see this. I don't want any of them to see this. Just go, please go. And she's like, you can let one person see you like this. I have a steel stomach. Because he made some comment way earlier in the book, I think, about needing a woman with a steel stomach because of the things he has to do to survive or something. I don't know. And so then she introduces him to cold showers. As he's talking, she like slowly turns it colder and colder, and then she turns it freezing for a second. And then it's like a whole thing for the rest of the book where he takes these like cold showers and he's like, she's so smart. It's like, okay, bestie, I love that for you. So she goes downstairs and she has a conversation with Army, and she's like, hey, there was a while ago where we talked about trauma that you had been through, and you had explained to me about why you hate saints, like why you hate the people of St. Carmen. And the reason was because there was a time, like when they were really young, right after the mom died, where Army and Macon were cleaning someone's house, and they had offered them like thousands of dollars, like a crazy amount of money for them to bang dude's wife, right? Like it was one of those situations where they wanted to pretty much like pimp these kids out. And it really disgusted him. And he's like, I've never felt, so objectified in my entire life, and that they just thought of us as things and not as human beings. And it really just like solidified, these like really horrible perceptions and whatnot. And she's like, that story you told me about the man who wanted to pay for you and Macon to have sex with his wife, Macon did it, didn't he? Army turns the glass on his table, his jaw flexing as he stares at it. You couldn't. You left, and he stayed. The fact that he's not saying anything is enough of an answer. So much makes sense now. That's why he barely steps foot in the bay. That's why he never attended any of Liv's games. Army takes a sip of his drink. Doing what you have to in order to survive isn't noble if your soul can't survive. Macon knows that now. I stand up. He had no choice but to be capable of everything, Army. And you banked on that with every step you took away from the house when you left him behind. Which, again, I hate the way that we're dealing with trauma in this book, but whatever. I'm just telling you the story. This is crazy, though. This entire freaking thing is crazy, though. And so in chapter 22, from Macon's POV, he is talking about how much he hated this town and everything with his parents, and how like depressed his mom was, and how many kids they just kept popping out, and he ended up having to be responsible for them because the dad was working and the mom was like pretty much comatose with illness. And so the second he turned 18, he joined the Marines to get out of that situation. And joke was on me, though. 5 years later, I was called home for a funeral, and 2 months later, another one. At 23, I was the sole guardian and provider for 4 minors, and my parents had left us nothing but this house. He is feeling very, he's contemplating life very deeply. And he ends up going to the restaurant and talking to Mariette, the woman who owns it, right? And she kind of stepped in as like a mother figure to him after his parents died. And she knows about all of the struggles and stuff that he has. And so she's asking him, how often are you thinking about it? When I don't answer, she looks up at me. I don't look at her. Have you tried anything yet? She presses. I shake my head, at least giving her that. So she tells him that he needs to talk to people, and there's a little bit of back and forth there. And then eventually she hands him some soup, and he's like, I really like your soup. And she says, that's Christian's recipe. She makes you all of your food. And my body warms. She's like summer all the time. I climb in the truck, excited to go because she'll be there when we come home. She's sleeping in my room tonight. Not forever. Just one more night. And he's getting in the truck because he decided he's going to go and work. He's going to go with the boys to go across the way and go and work in St. Carmen. And this is the first time that he's done this in years. Because boys and girls, what better way to get over your trauma than bang the trauma away? Or in this case, take a cold shower, I guess, with a hot girl. I don't know. In chapter 23, we're back in Christian's POV. She's working and she sees a woman flirting with Macon and like putting her cell phone number in his phone. And she gets all flustered about it because obviously she likes him and just won't admit it or whatever. And eventually Army confronts her and he's like, hey, so what's going on between you two? Like, you've been sleeping in his bed all week. Nothing. He just needs sleep. Nothing has happened, but I wake up with his arms wrapped around me. And there's definitely some other stuff going on, right? And so she ends up approaching Macon after the women step away. And she's like, I don't think you should drink tonight or be having relations with those women. He leans down on the counter again, lifting his cup to his mouth. His jaw flexes. Relations? You know what I mean. I'm not even sure what I mean. Do I mean a relationship or just sex? I think about it for a second, picturing him on a date or taking someone to bed, and I don't like either. I wasn't gonna Christian. My stomach drops a little, like it does every time he says my name. Tonight, anyway. He adds, turning to me, and I'll be 32 in January. I don't need relationship advice from a teenager. A teenager? Is that how he sees me? I care about him. Does that mean anything to him? So she storms to the back area, and then he follows her, and then they have this, like, little heart-to-heart about her not wanting him to leave. She says, there are so many people who I don't see, I tell him. My mom and dad, Milo, Trace. No matter how I try to slow down and see them, I can't. I keep reaching for something I know is there, but I can't grab it, like they're not real. No different than any stranger passing by me, and I just keep walking. But I see you. Even when I close my eyes, I see you. He looks up at me. I jerk my chin to the restaurant and the bay beyond us. You take care of them. I'll take care of you. End of story. Until someone else comes along. He nods. And then I was like, girl, if you said until someone else comes along, it looks like someone else just came along. What do you mean? You're not even letting the man try to get some other woman to be taking care of him. That don't even make no sense. In chapter 24, it's the next day, and Macon's being all clingy. And so he's like, she's coming with me. And so he takes her to go to the docks to negotiate with Ames, the like real estate developer, Garrett Ames, the real estate developer guy. They're meeting on a boat to have a conversation. And when they get there, Jerome, arranged marriage guy, is also there for some reason. And they all have like a pissing contest. And it ends up like they want to buy the land, and he's like, I'll give you 200 acres for XYZ amount of money. And they're like, some other BS happening. And then they're like, you have until the end of the week to take her offer or not. Okay, cool. And then they leave. And as they're going home, he is telling her, like, hey, if you leave the bay, you need protection. Like, you're one of us now, and you need to act like it, because people are probably going to use you against me. And it's like, she like pushes back, and then he's like, no, I really mean it. I really mean it. I just care about you. Whatever. I don't care. Chapter 25. She makes a move on him to like bang. They are starting to do so. And every time that they are about to get to the next base, I guess we'll say, his phone goes off. He keeps getting continuous phone calls. And they're all from Trace. And eventually he ends up picking up. And Trace is like, the Saints are coming. The Saints have crossed the bridge. So a bunch of kids are on their way. She knows in her head that they're on their way to go to the cemetery to go and rob it, because that's what they were going to do last time. But whenever they get dressed to hurry up and go in, try and see what's going on, there's an explosion in the distance. And so he takes her to the restaurant and tells her to stay there and stay safe. And then the boys go run off toward the explosion. And then she's like, it's a diversion. But nobody listens to her. And so when the guys go and run off, she decides she's going to go and sprint to the graveyard. And the reason they're digging up the graveyard is because the treasure thing that got like briefly mentioned before. And he never confirmed nor denied it. So she runs off to the graveyard. She gets there, and Araceli is there with all of her friends. They're all hiding, and they have like, masks on and baseball bats and knives and stuff, and they're about to fight. And Araceli hands her some freaking brass knuckles, like with spikes on them. And she's like, awesome. And she asks her, she's like, why would they come here? Why would the Saints come here? And she's like, well, there's the treasure. She's like, the treasure is real? Oh my God, this is so crazy. Whatever. They like have a whole showdown with the Saints. They scare them off. They go running away. The boys appear, and Megan is pissed off at her for not listening to him and for putting herself in danger, and starts yelling at her about how, stupid she is, pretty much. So then Trace finally interrupts, and he says, you can talk to us like that because sometimes we deserve it, but she's not your property. My eyes sting, and Megan stands toe to toe with his brother, getting in his face, and Trace stays rooted. I won't hit back, he tells him, but I'm not going to back up this time. I almost smile, and Trace continues, with her, you have to be gentle. You taking her back? Megan dares him. Taking me back like I'm an object who doesn't speak? Dude, Megan is like such a freaking prick. And so she's like, wow, you were really just going to let your brother have me back. Like, you don't care about me. We were literally just banging and having all these emotional connections, but you weren't going to keep me, were you? He stares. I force down the lump in my throat. If I make love to you, I don't think I'm ever going to want anyone else. Will you keep me? Ew, girl, get up. Get up, please. This is so embarrassing. Like, this is so embarrassing. He doesn't answer at all. And so eventually she's like, okay, Araceli, will you take me home? And so she runs after her. Hops in the car with her. The radio's playing. It's really super quiet and awkward. And eventually she like pieces it together that Araceli is in love with Army. And that's why she hates her so much or something. And that's also why Araceli dated and banged all the other brothers, because she wanted to stay in Army's life in some capacity. I don't know, dude. And so she's like, well, don't worry. You can have him. You'll have whatever you want. I know you can make it happen. I don't know. I honest to God don't know. And in chapter 26, she gets dropped off and she goes home, and in 26 we're in Macon's POV. And he just can't stop thinking about her, right? He's like really tripping over this and how much that he messed up. And so he puts on a suit, his only suit. It's the suit he wore to his parents' funeral, and then he said he would never wear it again. But he puts it on because he wants to impress her and, be the type of person that she would marry, right? Because she would marry a saint and like a business mogul or like a lawyer or something. So he's going to dress the part. He goes over to her house and he's like banging on the door, and she looks and sees that it's him, and she ignores him. So he kicks down her front door, just kicks it off the hinges. The security alarm starts to go off, and he's like, you better turn it off. And she doesn't. And it rings and rings and rings, and then it turns off, and then the phone next to the alarm rings and rings and rings, and she doesn't answer that either. And she says, you have 3 minutes before, it's a 3-minute response time. So that's all the time you have to tell me whatever it is you want to. Which again is so infuriatingly stupid when his other brother is literally in prison, and I feel like we should all be a little bit more cognizant and sensitive to just having they're people of color. They are like Hispanic and Native American, I believe, and then there's some white in them as well. But like kind of I haven't really talked about this, but like the whole point of like the Bay and looking down on them is it's like the rich white people and then it's the poor people of color. And it's like a whole bunch of tension and like dumb tension and stuff like that, and taking their lands that they've had for, however long, and all these like colonizers moving in on their property. It feeds into this whole dynamic that's happening between the Saints and the Bay or the swamp area. It's a lot of like coded language here that's happening. I haven't really talked about it because it feels weird and icky to bring it up, and like the way that it's done in this book is kind of icky, the same way that like Dallas being queer is brought up in a way that makes me feel icky, that like I'm just kind of skimming by and telling you the rest of the story, but I would like just to acknowledge it now. And so it feels really, really weird that we're just willy-nilly having these people be subjected to this. It just seems a little concerning, especially the fact that this book was written in 2024 and whatever. What do I know? So he breaks in. She says the whole, like, you have 3 minutes to talk. And he's like, who said I wanted to talk? You're not old enough for me. She scowls. What? She says, I can't be what keeps you alive. I can't take care of you. I can't even take care of myself. I don't want you to take care of me. I growl, pulling her into me. I don't want you to make me soup and clean up after me and tell me to eat and what not to drink. I don't want you to do things a mother does. I want you to do the things a girlfriend does. He continues to try and make out with her, and she's like, I don't think you have these cops on your payroll. And he tells her to call them off. And she was like, and let them think they can leave me alone with you? Christian, I scold. She smirks. I'll tell Trace. Like he's her protector now. She's daring me. I arch a brow. I raised that boy to share. This is so fucking disgusting. Again, the like rolling nausea in my body from this is like horrifying, dude. And she says, you just want your turn. Is that it? My turn. I break into a smile, the police lights getting closer. She falters, seeing my amusement. What? Nothing. I shake my head. She continues to back up and I match her step for step. What if I'm pregnant? She asks. I pause, my heart beating faster. Are you? I could be. It would be one of your brothers. No, it wouldn't. It would be mine. I tell her. Iron and Army always wrap it up. I had to feel you. And then she's like, but you didn't come inside. And then she realizes, not that night. He's the guy from the couch. The 32-year-old did things to the 18-year-old freshly graduated high school student, which she... And this is where I would just like to say, because I haven't said it yet. Honestly, I'm actually kind of proud of myself for not saying this quite yet and going off on this like angry tangent. I've actually held it in very, very well. So I also need to open this with, I don't have a problem with YA, young adult books, young adults being in books. That's fine. You can even have a young adult romance, but a young adult book or with anybody of this like 18-year-old age should not be made to be sexualized or to be like a spice scene. When you, as a 45-year-old, are writing explicit, intended to be spice scenes with a freshly 18-year-old child and a grown-ass adult, you are a pervert. Full stop. If you are a fully grown adult getting off to an 18-year-old hooking up with somebody almost twice their age, you're a pervert. Sorry. Hate to break it to you. Chris Hansen on speed dial for you. It's weird and it's creepy and I don't get it. And that's kind of what I was saying in the initial opening of this video. There's no reason for her to be 18. There's no reason for her to be this young. She could have been like halfway, 3/4 of the way through college and decided to take a semester off because she was like, I didn't know what she wanted to do with her life and her family was falling apart. So she came home to take care of her siblings. The high school thing has no aspect to this book, no impact on it at all. Completely irrelevant. You could have aged her up 5 years and nothing would have changed. Like in the storyline. It's creepy and weird and I don't get it. I literally genuinely don't get it. Thank God. I don't want to either. I don't want to understand y'all's sicko fucko heads, you know? Anyway, it's just gross. And it's one thing, like, wholeheartedly, admittedly, right? If I was 18, reading about an 18-year-old in this position, or like even like maybe up to like 20 years old kind of reading about this, I would probably, to be honest, to be frank, would probably feel different about this dynamic. I'd be grossed out about the brothers still, but like an 18 or 20-year-old dating a 32-year-old, I would probably be like, oh my God, that's like hot. But as somebody who is 29 years old, almost 30, that is disgusting. And so that's where I'm like, if it's an 18-year-old or like a very, very young author writing about this, totally different story. Why did I say that? I think because they end up banging. Oh, yeah, because he's the guy from the couch. Love that. And so then they just end up start banging as the security company people are like coming through her house and sweeping through it and calling out. And they're like, hello, is anybody here? They're calling out, trying to see if she's okay. And they're just like banging in a room, just ignoring these people. I don't know, dude. And she makes like a joke. And she's like, swamp shouldn't cross the tracks. She bites out, but I take her hand in my hands. You're swamp now too, I say. You're ours. This is so gross. This is so gross. You can't see my thumb, but I'm like literally just like scrolling through all of this. Whatever. They eventually like talk the security guards into leaving them alone somehow. I don't know. This is the other aspect too, that this is like some weird kink. This whole like doing stuff in front of people and doing stuff like in front of law enforcement. It's literally happened twice in this book, and I feel like this is some weird secret kink that I don't know anything about, nor do I want to again. But like, that's a very oddly specific scenario to come up twice now. And so they end up going to sleep together in her bedroom. They wake up. She has a canopy bed, like the little curtain that goes around her bed because she's like a little princess, and she has a bunch of stuffed animals on her bed. It's reminding me that you're nowhere near my age. I stare up at all the fabric, something I forget a lot given all the things I just did to you. She still has a math book on her bedside table, for Christ's sake. I'm feeling a little weird about how she just rode me backwards. She lifts her head. Have you ever been with someone with a 13-year gap before? Which, like, hold on, 2 things about this real quick. That's what I mean. So, like, in Birthday Girl, I mentioned it earlier. So he bought her a birthday cake that was pink, and he was afraid that she would be offended because it was like a little girl color. And then literally 2 chapters later, they're about to bang and she's wearing pink underwear, and he notes how it's like this pretty pink. And I was like, oh, that's not an accident that you're putting those 2 things together, you sicko. And then in this one, we're literally calling it out and like adding the whole layered things to her bedroom of having the canopy bed and the stuffed animals and the textbook on the shelf or on the bedside table. You didn't need to say that. You didn't need to add this like extra layer of like perversion to this dynamic. That was something that was like intentionally done with an extra layer to like add a taboo factor, or add a certain twist on it that I can't say on YouTube because it gets flagged automatically. But like, again, I got FBI on speed dial for you weirdos, dude. Okay, I'll stop bullying people, even though they deserve it forever. Oh yeah, and so then part 2 to this, her asking him, this Beezy asks him about this 13-year age gap thing, knowing for a fact she had already talked to Army about it. She knows that he had accepted to do like the sexual favors for money thing. She knows the answer is yes. And so he gets all weird and she says, I'm sorry. For what? Army told me about the offers and didn't tell me much, but blah, blah, blah. And she's like, how many times? He says, I don't want to talk about it. How many times did you do that? She pushes me. What did I say, Christian? And then finally he says, a few. A few like 3 or a few like 10? A few like 6. She passed the news on to her friend. It didn't go on longer than a few months. I got cash and used it to buy things that I didn't mind selling. They were just as miserable in their lives as I was. They had their own shit to deal with, and we were able to forget about our lives for a while. But a few of the others, he says, everything was so dark in the Bay at the time. One of the St. Carmen women wanted me to pretend that I was her son, or one liked to hit me a lot. And so then he goes on this like whole thing about, he was like, I just kind of would black out in it, and I would dive into my own head and I thought about someone else, about another girl. And she's like, who would you think about? No one in particular, a saint, someone I wasn't supposed to have, someone sweet and innocent, always with sunshine in her hair and smiles that felt warm. I just didn't know she was real. I've been dreaming about you for a long time. Her kind eyes smile at me. Well, since I was like 10 or 11 anyway, because that's how old she would have been when he was doing this stuff for money. It's about to get worse. If you think that this is the worst that it could possibly get, and you're thinking, Kaylee, how much more absolutely disgusting, atrocious, vomiting in my mouth could this situation possibly get? Bestie, it's Penelope Douglas. What do you mean? Hold on a second. This leads him into having like another spicy time thing that I'm not going to get into. And then in chapter 27, she's like putting the tie back on him and he's putting his suit back on, and they're in the living room and she's helping him get dressed for the day before he goes back home. She's wearing like literally just her underwear, I think, in an oversized shirt. And he tells her, pack up the kids and anything else that you need, you understand? My mother's old art studio is theirs until the renovations are completed and then they can have their own room. But my parents, they know where to find us again if they ever want to be parent. Wait, did you say renovations? The old wing, where we're going to rebuild. Dex will need a room and so will Iron when he comes home. So he's going to build 5 bedrooms in this extra wing of the house so that the kids and everybody can have like extra space. And they continue to have this like little back and forth cutesy moment where she's talking about like how she wants to get a alligator stuffed animal and she goes, nom, nom, nom. She literally says that out loud, nom, 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 while she bites his chin. Yeah, no, it's really, really bad, actually. It was really, really gross. And it somehow gets significantly worse when all of a sudden the front door opens and her mom comes in the room. And her mom says, WTF, runs up to him and pushes him. And she says, you don't get to have my daughter. How dare you? You thought you could have one of us? You thought you could lay your hands on her? You don't get to F her, my mother yells. And she's realizing, Christian is realizing, he'd said the woman passed him around to her friends. One of them was my mom. Why didn't he tell me? I did a review on a book called Promises and Pomegranates by Savar Miller. And in that book, spoiler alert, the guy bangs the love interest's mom as well. It's pretty clear throughout the book. It's not like really a surprise or a spoiler in any way, but that's like a dynamic between them that the daughter doesn't realize until later in the book. And it's like this whole point of contention. And I'm just like, what is the thing? That I have if I had a nickel for every time, one of these guys banged her mom, I would have 2 nickels. Isn't a lot, but it's really weird that it happened twice. And so, which also means that like he knew her when she was 10 or 11 years old, because they would have been doing it at her house. Because obviously it's not like the parents are going to cross over into the whatever the heck it's called, into the bay to go and hook up with these guys. These guys are going to come and do their landscaping and then you bang the wife or whatever, which means he would have been in their house, which means either she might not have been home when it was happening, but I'm sure there was family photos. I'm sure there was whatever. He knew exactly who she was when she met him, like as a 18-year-old or whenever she started banging his brother, Trace. He's known who she was this entire time. The entire time. And so he tells her, he's like, baby, just get in the car. Don't even get dressed. Don't bring anything. Just go and get in the car. And she says no. She's like, how long have you known? He tells her, I've always known who you were. And she's like, why would you do this to me? Are you using me? Were you going to use me for something? And he's like, if I were going to use you, I had a lot of opportunities. I could have let you make that video with my brothers. I sent Army after you that night because I liked you, because I wanted more of you, because I'd never seen a woman so soft with herself and touch herself like that, because I didn't want you to be where I couldn't see you every day. And so eventually she's like, how many times? A few like 3 or a few like 10. And he says a few like I blocked it out. Oh my God, dude. Your mother's just jealous that you never had to pay me. It was quite my pleasure, actually, like hooking up with the daughter, hooking up with Christian, I'm guessing. And he throws me off, wiping me off his mouth and taking a bill out of his pocket. He backs away, leaving it on the corner of my desk as he walks out of the door. I'll let Dallas know that he's up. So he just paid her for this interaction, which I would also like to know a couple of things off the bat. Rewind. So he didn't have her pay for the car repairs, which I feel like is an inadvertent way to be paying her or whatever, and then having her like work at the restaurant and having Army bring her the money that night was a way of paying her after like a sexual favor, since that was technically like the day after he had the couch scene with her. And then after they had the whole garage thing and he put that money in her panties, and then now this time he's leaving money on the counter. This is like very paralleled, indicative of like him hooking up with her parent. Oh my God. And then I'll let Dallas know he's up. I dropped my phone when I read that. I read that line. I said, oh my God, the audacity, right? Like this freaking man. I cannot believe it. I can't believe what I'm reading right now. In chapter 28, Macon goes home and, his life is ruined and he's so depressed and angry, and he goes upstairs and all the brothers immediately see what's wrong and realize that he's not with Christian. Like, they know that that's where he went the night before. And so when he comes back and he's all pissy and won't respond, they know that she did something wrong. They know that she broke his heart. So they hate her automatically. And he goes up to his room and he's contemplating, like, ending his own life. And then he gets a phone call from, like, a weird number, and he picks it up, and it's Iron calling him from prison from one of the snuck in cell phones, because he's like, I had to call you from this number because I know that if I called you from the prison line, you wouldn't have picked up. And he's like, yeah, you're right, that is true. Like, and they have some like heart-to-heart stuff about hold on, what is this? They have some like weird heart-to-heart about you don't realize how badly you want something until you find out that it's no longer an option. I'm sick of regret. And then Araceli ends up coming over and like knocking on the door to ask him if he needs something. And then he ends up being like, hey, you're going to be my assistant now. Here's my dirty suit. Order 3 more of these in a different color and take this to the cleaner. And you're going to be the co-owner, co-runner of Mariette's, the restaurant. He's like, feel free to take over and do whatever you need to make it happen. And you schedule me XYZ in meeting. And he's like, just like, has all of this stuff all of a sudden that he's going to go and get done. And he says, just one more day. I can stay for one more day like my mom did. Hello? Okay. In chapter 29, we are getting to the point in the night where I'm just like slowly sinking more and more into my chair. So there's not even really a reason to look anymore unless you're needing the captions at the bottom of the screen. I'm just going to be slowly hiding further and further over here. In chapter 29, Christian has some grand plan that she puts into motion. And I would just like to open this by saying, don't worry, she did do the math. And we talked about the whole reason for her parents' divorce is the fact that Mars isn't her father's child. Don't worry, Mars is not Macon's either. He would have been conceived and born while Macon was in the Marines, states away. So it's definitely not his kid. Okay. So praise God. we've got that going for us. And she's realizing that, she's reflecting on her relationship with Macon, and she's like, he didn't do this for revenge. When he finally started to talking to me and wanted only me near him, only me. He tried not to see me, tried not to get close. He tried to not look at me or talk to me. He didn't want revenge. He didn't want me to find out, and knew that I would at some point. He knew I'd hurt him when I did. I never deserved him. I don't know. And so she ends up coming to the realization or something, and also through all of the pictures that she got from her dad's phone, that there's significantly more items that have been put in her name, because the plan was that her dad had been planning on divorcing her mom for a long time. And so he gave all of his assets to the daughter so that when they got divorced, those assets wouldn't be taken away. And then he would be able to take them out of Christian's name before she realized. But she did realize. And so now she's liquidating all of these items, and her dad is finally noticing. And so she's set up a meeting with her dad to confront him about a bunch of stuff and make a deal with him. And then in the interim, she talks to her mom and she says, I'll meet with Jerome Watson and I'll get you your settlement from Dad. She says, how? Does it really matter? You'll be taken care of on 2 conditions. You go to the house in the Keys until further notice. Of course they have a second house. Of course they have a house in the Keys. I didn't even realize that until I just read this again. You go to the house in the Keys until further notice, and you sign over this house to me. Mom's like, what? You've got to be kidding. Or I'll tell everyone what you did to him, to Macon. You think that'll shock them? Like your father or anyone else in the town doesn't have secrets of their own? I set my phone down on the island. Everyone. Her face falls, her eyes shifting to the phone. She breathes in and out for several seconds. And the mom says, Mars and Paisley will stay with me, I reply. We'll discuss guardianship once I touch base with Dad. And of course the mom, being just a selfish, greedy, grabby pancake pincher, says, okay, fine, and signs away the house and agrees to this arrangement about the kids. And then she's like, I need to find the car title so I can sell it. An old Rover won't support us forever. And I'll still need a car of some sort, but I don't need an expensive one, and I don't want to drive my dad's old car. I don't want anything of his. I should be able to get $40,000 for the Rover. That's so gross. That's such a disgusting number. Finding the title, I slip it out and set it aside, replacing the folder in the drawer. And yeah, so she's been spending the 2 days doing all that, and then she tells her dad to meet her in the wolf room tonight at 8 o'clock, and he's like, how do you know about that room? I hang up, I walk out the door, and I step onto the sidewalk. How does he know about the room in question? You said it to him. Did you expect him to not know about it? What do you mean? He's like one of the guys at the country club. Of course he knows about this room. You're some random teenage kid. Why do you expect him to not know what it is? And then why would you say it to him in such a way if you expected him to not know what it was? What was the point of any of this? And then she goes to leave to start running around, and Trace and Dallas veer around me because they're doing like her neighbor's yard or something. They veer around me, glancing at me, but continuing without a word. My heart splits. I don't know if I keep walking or I don't know if I keep walking or how I get to my car down the street, but when I look back, they're gone. That's how easily things can change. In chapter 30, Mason is working with Santos, the guy that was her bodyguard. Obviously, he's not on bodyguard duty anymore. And so he's helping Max, hello? Macon. He's helping Macon build this addition on the house. They're still going to build this like new wing and have five bedrooms and a couple bathrooms added to the house. And then I was like, y'all are talking about the shuttering and like banging against the door in the storms and how y'all lose power every time it rains and how the kitchen has a leak and you got all this like broken shit. And then you're going to build an entire 5-bedroom wing of the house. What are you talking about? Literally, what is even... Okay. You know what? I don't even know why I bother asking. And Santos, is trying to make small talk with him. And he's like, hey, I have like my wife's friend, she's single and, maybe we could set you up. She's an interior decorator. So once we get this built up and you need that, she could come over and, bada 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 bada. And he kind of plays it off a little bit. And then later that night, he also has a meeting in the wolf room. And then for some reason, we get a description of it as if we haven't already been in this room. And they're like, it's a secret underground meeting place where the real parties at Fox Hill Country Club happen. It's on the lower level of the clubhouse. And I was like, we literally just had this conversation a couple of chapters ago. What are we doing right now? But all of the siblings end up going there to meet with Ames, Callum Ames, Garrett Ames. You know what? I don't even know, and I don't want to talk about it. I don't even care about any of these people anymore. Why am I even invested? There's so many fucking people, dude. So they go there to meet with Garrett. Callum is his son. Callum's the guy that tried to assault them. Or Callum is his son that was banging Dallas. And he's friends with Milo, who attacked them. I don't know. So he's meeting with Garrett because the week has been up and it's time for them to make the decision about the deal and like what they're going to do going forward and whatnot. And so they're in there. Callum is there. Jerome is there. Her father, like Christian's father, is in the room at the table. And they're all really confused about who all these people are and what all these extra bodies are. And before they can get the conversation going, Christian walks in. This was an unexpected turn of events. They were not expecting her to be there. And she's there to deal with her negotiation with her father and Jerome. So she opens up the door. Everybody's looking at her. Christian, her father starts, but she cuts him off. I'll deal with you in a minute. She stands in front of the table addressing Watson, Jerome, arranged marriage guy, only. I want my own room until I'm ready to share yours, she tells him. And so Jerome is like, what else are your demands pretty much? And she says, my brother and sister come with me. And there's some back and forth. And then eventually Jerome says, why would I still want you? And this really, really pisses Macon off. Not only like this situation with Jerome, but the fact that they're having this conversation in front of him. And so he's like, well, F her. I clenched my jaw before speaking. Whether you marry her or not, I tell him, you're going to want a piece of her. Trust me. Oh, this is so disgusting. And so he gets up to like storm out. And the real estate developer guy, he says, I will get the land. The hard way then, I say in a low voice. I'm in the mood for a fight. A long, loud, expensive fight. The guy's like, there will be losses. He says, as long as you're okay with that, I tell him. I kick my chair back, hearing it stumble behind me. And like, This is just so stupid. They didn't even come to a conclusion or an agreement about the property or anything. They all just got like pissy and stormed out. And so in 31, Christian's perspective, she's glad that he left quickly because now she can continue her negotiation. And she finishes this agreement with Jerome. And then she says that the kids will stay with her and her dad needs to sign over custody. And he also needs to sign this check, taking in the sizable but fair amount I wrote out. She won't acquiesce for anything less. And so he signs the paper. She cashes it immediately on her phone. And then Jerome says, so why the change of heart? Well, I'm not going to college. I pull out one more thing from the pocket of my skirt and step forward. And I promise you, you'll get everything you pay for, I tell him, placing the key on the table. One more condition. Jerome reaches out to pick it up. And what's that? I slide it away from him. Not you. I push it toward Garrett Ames instead. You. He picks it up and turns it over, examining it. And what's this a key to, little girl? We'll find out later. But she leaves quickly. She storms out. And she hears somebody call after her. And all of the Jaegers stayed behind. And so they're talking to her out in this field and whatnot. And Macon comes up and he's like, does he have enough money for you? You look good, I whisper. How many square feet did he promise you? And she looks around and she sees that they're all riding motorcycles together. And so she says, and she's like, oh my God, you guys are all riding motorcycles. And he ignores her and he says, does he have any brothers? I don't know, but he won't want anyone else touching me, at least for a while. At least until. But he already knows. Ew! And he says, what was one of those rumors about me that you had heard that I'm gonna breed you all out? And then she says, I love you. You could be carrying one of ours right now. My brothers and I had a lot of fun with you after all. I love you, I whisper. He's gonna get you nice and used. I kiss him softly. I love you. I would father all of your children, he murmurs. I press my lips to his forehead. Summon me every time you want one. I'll happily work for you. Leaning in, he kisses my forehead, sets me back on my feet, and leaves me there. I love you. I mouth long after he's gone. What in the frick, dude? Again, I have that same nauseous feeling in my stomach. I don't get this when I read books. I have only ever gotten this when I have read this book and when I read Shallow River by H.D. Carlton. This is like a next level, like just disgusting, dude. In chapter 32, he's kind of reflecting on life and just feeling uber depressed, and he hears the beeps of a car, like a construction truck backing up. So he rushes outside and he's like, what's going on? And it's a bunch of construction guys dropping off some material because they're going to get to work in the morning. And he's like, what do you mean you're going to get to work in the morning? And they're going to pave all the streets. They're going to get new streets and street lights and stop signs, and they're going to have an overhaul of all of the infrastructure down in the bay. And that was part of the deal that Macon had with Ames. Like, that was one of the conditions of their thing, was that Ames would approve all of these like projects downtown. But obviously their like deal didn't get made because of all the shenanigans that happened. And so he's really, really confused about what's going on. And the construction guy is like, yeah, I don't know why it's all happening. You must have had somebody pull some strings for you. And he's really confused about who would have been pulling these strings. And so Clay, her dad is like some political figure. And she's like, it wasn't my dad, I don't know. I don't know what happened. And he's like, you better tell me, what did she do? Because now he's like, he knows that Christian did something. So Clay says she traded the house. Garrett Ames will back off for 5 years. He'll back off. He's not standing in the way of getting the roads or trying to take the land for 5 years. I narrow my eyes. And what am I supposed to do with 5 years? Clay shrugs a little. Find a way to make the land more valuable to the government than whatever Garrett Ames would do. She bought you time. He gave up a 9-figure deal for a house? No. Christian threatened to give us the house as an alternative. We could find a million things to do with it that would drive down property values in that neighborhood, which is craziness. And so he drives immediately over to her house to try and like salvage things, to try and stop her from selling the house and moving out or something. And there's some moving trucks there. And so he's like, oh, good, it's not too late. I can do this. But he gets out and he's yelling, and she's not there, though. And so he calls one of the many numbers I vowed to never contact again. Hello? Cara Conroy answers. I walk back to my truck. Are you in town? She hesitates, and she may have forgotten my number, but she knows my voice. I'm not far. Why? 2 locks, I tell her. 1 hour. What does that mean? What is 2 locks? I think it's a place. I think it's a people. I think it's a thing. I think it's a noun. I don't know anything. Also, Kara's her mom, obviously, if that wasn't clear. In chapter 33, we're almost done with this godforsaken book. Christian is hanging out with Clay at the new beach house that her mom bought or something, that Clay's mom bought. I've been staying here with Mars and Paisley for 2 days while I search for a more modest place. Not that we had to leave our house, but it was never a home. Not like that little cottage that Trace had showed us that night. I want them to live somewhere like that. And so in my note, I said, you're looking for a house? I thought you said that you were going to move in with Jerome. Is that not happening? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're looking for a house? And so eventually she gets a phone call from the nanny, and the nanny says, hey, just wanted to let you know that the kids never showed up at your grandparents' house. The mom was supposed to drop the kids off with the grandparent. This never happened. She's like, what? Oh my God, this is so crazy. She's like, do you have any idea where they could be? And he says, your dad's not answering, but your mom said that they're in the bay. And she's like, what? Why would they? Oh my God, this is so crazy. Why are the kids in the bay? What's going on? And so she rushes to try to get to the bay. She runs into Army. Army makes her get in his truck. He takes her to the docks. She thought that they were going to go home and go and see the kids or something, that maybe they just like ended up back at the Jaeger house. But he takes her to the dock and they end up going into a room. They go onto a ship. I ignore his hand and hop on, walking past him and sliding open the door. I stop. Men crowd the living room and I gaze around, recognizing most of them as they all turn their heads to look at me. Jerome Watson, Garrett Ames, a lawyer named Stuart Cole, Trace, Dallas, Army's with him obviously, and Macon stands in the center wearing a dark suit with a navy blue shirt and a black tie. His arms are crossed over his chest. You keep the house, he says, but he's not talking to me. He's talking to Garrett Ames. I keep the 5 years. Once that time is up, if the land is not appraised for at least 300% above the initial offer, you get it, no argument. And then they like sign off on it in front of everybody. And then she charges up to Macon and she's like, what did you do? He says, I bought you back. You weren't yours to sell. I don't even know what that means. I don't know how he bought her. Like, did Jerome literally pay the mom something to get her? I don't understand that part. What do you mean he bought you back? I shake my head. He took me off the table and put every person living in the bay on it instead. How could he do that? 5 years to make the land valuable is something, but it may not be enough. What if he can't pull it off? I'm not worth that. He says, she's like, where are my brother and sister? He picks up a cigarette and a lighter, making their new beds and decorating their new room. His mother's art room. I back away toward the doors. I'm taking them home. They are home. I have power of attorney. She says, what? Power of attorney. He could have only gotten that from one of my parents. He slides a document across the table. I walk over, I pick it up, and I read it as he waits. My mother is the grantor. She has given him authorization to act as Mars and Paisley's behalf in her absence. It doesn't mean he has custody, but he has more than me. I haven't gotten around to making this legal with my parents yet. And then he whispers, I just paid a lot for you. Come here. Ew. And then they end up like banging on the boat, I think. Oh, she says, oh, ew. Oh my God. Ew. Sorry. Ew. He whispers, I paid a lot for you. Come here. Dallas says the whole bay paid for her. How much? How much did you pay her? Enough for all of you to get your uses out of me? Who is she in front of right now? His chest rises and falls in heavy breaths, and I reach behind my back, tugging the strings of my top. I'm topless. The guys are silent behind me. Enough for you to do whatever you want? And he says, enough for me to get you knocked up. I want a kid and I want it from you. And then he tells his brothers to go and wait outside, and then they like bang on this boat. I'm assuming all the other guys had been dismissed before this like topless thing had happened. But like, I don't know, dude. I don't know. And her final POV, the way that her final chapters, she goes out saying, I always thought that I was some special little shit growing up. I was told that I was smart, that I would take on the world and everyone would know who I was. I would be someone great and no one would be outside my sphere of influence. But the thing is, I'm not unique. I was never that smart. I'll never be an astronaut or the captain of a ship or a professor of biology or philosophy. I'm not a good athlete. And I'm fine seeing mountains and operas and Alaska just on TV. No one will remember me after I'm gone, and I'll never be someone kids learn about in school. I just want to love you. That I will do beautifully. Aww, that's kind of cute. Chapter 34, Macon. his POV, the final chapter of our book. He tells Liv, his sister, right, to take her home and that the boys have something to deal with. Being, the boys go out to this like abandoned bridge and Santos has Milo. And they were gonna kill Milo? I don't know, dude. I don't know. And so he's like, Macon is in the middle of like pulling this like giant like hunting knife blade back, and he's about to like cut dude's head off. I rear it back, my eyes on his throat, and then she's there, slipping between me and him. Footfalls race over the bridge behind me, and I can only assume it's my sister and Clay. Christian grips my shirt, my shirt at my stomach. Her eyes look up at me, pleading. Get out of the way. I won't make the same mistake as my father. If he had put my mom first, she wouldn't have spent 20 years dying from the inside out. I'm not giving Milo Price a chance to succeed the next time he comes for my sister or Christian. Family comes first. And so then eventually she's like, you can't do this. Think of the consequences. If you go to prison, you won't be in any of our lives. And so then they just like beat Milo, just like drop him off. I don't know. We get a little time break and it's the next morning and we still haven't slept. We stayed up all night talking about our favorite holidays, our worst memories, if we believed in God, my favorite body part of hers, and why the electric bill has more than doubled since she started staying here the past couple of months. We agreed it's her long, hot showers. He's the one that takes the long, hot showers, though. She takes cold showers, remember? What does that mean? Is that a joke? And he calls her my little princess from the wrong side of the track, which makes me want to unalive myself. Yeah, we go to an epilogue 4 years later. I don't care to talk about it. You know, I don't believe in that stuff. It's just obviously them having kids and everybody being happily ever after, and they're picking up Iron from prison. He's finally out. Yay, guys. This was so cool. And that's the end of the book. That's the book. So what did you think of it? That was pretty bad. That was a lot, and it was a lot of bad. That was 560 pages, my guy, over the course of one summer. I don't even know if I think in the very end, they're at Christmas time. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Or Halloween to Christmas. 2 months? Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that's even crazier. And also just to like, not that it matters in any way, but she had only like had relations with Milo before she started having relations with Trace. And so she was very, very inexperienced and then ended up in this situation where she's just like banging all these brothers. And she's not the only one. Araceli did it, and then she had another friend that had also banged 2 of them. So like, what's that about? Not to like, I mean, I guess slut shaming was technically in the trigger warnings that I found on romance.io, and I'm not shaming anybody here, but like, I feel like going between siblings. I feel like I can kind of judge a little bit there. That's a little crazy, especially to have it happen multiple times with like multiple women. Girl, boy. Again, who comes up with this stuff? I swear to God, this author is like absolutely something else. I literally don't even have any words. I can't fathom anything to like give a critique any more than what I said as we were going through it. I think this was worse than Birthday Girl. I do think it was actually worse than Birthday Girl, which is impressive. I have not read Credence personally, nor will I ever. I've watched enough other people do breakdowns of that book, and it was also pretty bad. I still think this one might actually be worse, though. At least I guess she was legally 18. In Credence, I think she was 17 for a hot minute in there. I genuinely don't get these grown folk writing about kids in this way. Kids in grown folk situations, too. It's not like she was like, you know, in high school dealing with other high schoolers. This was like a high schooler being in multiple relationships with people that were over 6 years older than she was. I just don't get it, man. And I think I'm too old. To get it. Like I said, I think if I was younger, if I was like 18 to 20 reading this, I would probably feel differently about the dynamic. Again, not the sibling dynamic. That's still icky. That's still a no-no. But maybe the other pieces of it, I'd be like, oh, that's kind of hot. But I can't get past any of it as a grown adult now, where I'm just like, she's a baby. She's a baby kid. You're literally in the same breath. There was one point where Army, he was like, oh, no, I'm never going to do anything with her. She's just a kid. She's a good kid. And then literally the next page, he ends up banging her. And then he's like, yeah, I know I told Trace that she's a kid, but you know, she's like a hot kid. Is essentially what happens. Ew. I think that's my whole review of the book. Ew. Okay, that's all I have to say. Video next week. I think I'm going to do another monster romance. I'm going to need something more light and fun and hee hee ha ha good times. I don't know what though. I got to see what's trending in the universe and what you guys have recommended. In the description box below, I have a recommendations Google form if you guys want to do anything on there. I've had a couple of people put it on there. I do look at them. I do read what you guys put. Also in the description box below, I have the Spotify link, the link to the Etsy shop if you want any of my stickers. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. I appreciate you guys so much. You guys are all absolutely phenomenal. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.